A significant shakeup took place today surrounding the New York Jets head coach and general manager search. Another day and no new man in the building. We'll break the latest reports down and much more, all coming up here on a Friday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by Justin Freed of the Jet Press.
J-E-T-S, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello everyone and welcome into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk Friday, January 17th. Here on this evening, another day, no GM, no head coach in the building. Several reports that surfaced today, surrounding the Jets search, whether it's Mike Borgonzi going to Tennessee, he will be the Titans' next general manager, or the report from Adam Schefter stating that Josh McCown is not leaving Minnesota unless it's for a head coaching job. So we'll break that down and much more with our guest, Justin Freed of the Jet Press. But before we bring him on, smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We greatly appreciate all of your support here on the show. And don't forget about our membership raffle. Every membership you gift gets you a ticket into our raffle. And we have some great prizes this month. A Garrett Wilson signed mini helmet, a Wayne Corbett signed football, a free item from our merch store, and a custom channel emoji. So a lot of prizes coming up. We do have some memberships that came in before the show started, so let's get to those. Chris J comes in with 5 gifted memberships. Chris, appreciate it. That goes to Wild Wave, Mike Rubino, Stack, Terrence Hill, Dick Chimney's Burner. Those are the 5 memberships. And Mother Effing Chew comes in with 1 membership. That goes to Charles Gorman. And wow, before we go any further, Jimmy Jets with a 10 spot. We'll give him a Jets chant. Jets. There we go, Jimmy. That means a lot. I appreciate your support on the show with 10 memberships, 10 more raffle tickets for you. The memberships went to our guy, Bobby Midnight, Reese Quintain, Ali Sharife, Groove Petite, Brandon Sanzone, Who's Her Daddy, Vero Beach NY Jets fan, Zachary Berner, Carly Fleischer, and Lee. Jimmy, I appreciate the support, and I appreciate the 10 gifted memberships here on the show. But let's bring on our guest today. He covers the team for the Jet Press, someone's work who I followed for a long time now, an absolute legend in the Jets community. It's our guy, Justin Freed, joining us here on the program. Justin, what's going on?
What's up, man? I appreciate the warm introduction. Also, shout out Jimmy Jets, 10 subs.
Yes, sir.
That's crazy.
Well, Justin, I am super happy you are able to be here, and a lot to get into in Jetsland. I guess where I'm going to start is the Mike Borgonzi news. He was someone who intrigued a lot of fans for the general manager vacancy. I mean, he's been with the Chiefs since 2009. They're currently, they're a dynasty right now in this league, working his way up from, whether it's administrator of college scouting now to he was Brent Veach's right-hand man starting in 2022. Thoughts on this move? How does it really affect the Jets head coach and general manager search? Personally, I was never big on Borgonzi. I thought, he was getting a little too much hype other than really ascending up that front office along with being a part of a dynasty. I don't know really what more there is to particularly like about him. This doesn't really change much for me. I'm still pretty much in that Thomas Dimitroff, Brian Gain, Mike Greenberg, both. Those are my top 3 candidates. How does this affect your thought process, Justin?
Right. I mean, it's tough for starters to evaluate general manager candidates because it's unlike other, with head coaches. I feel like we have more of an idea of what these guys specifically do on a ground level. Whereas with general managers, it's like, all right, this guy was Veach's right-hand man. He was the assistant general manager in Kansas City. Okay. I mean, that's a great resume on paper. So was Ryan Poles. And Ryan Poles has kind of had a shaky tenure in Chicago. I mean, he's still there, but it's been up and down. Ask embarrassing with Ryan Poles. It won't be great. So it's really difficult to evaluate them. What we do know about Borgonzi was that ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, I believe, earlier in the week reported that he was a quote-unquote strong candidate for the Jets job as well as the Titans job. Obviously, he got the Titans job. I don't know if Mike Borgonzi is going to be a very good general manager, and I don't want to pile on the Jets here, and because I don't think the extensive search has kind of gotten a little overblown. Where people are kind of freaking out and losing their minds about it. But I do think there's something to be said about the Titans fired Rand Carthen, their GM, or former GM, I should say, 10 days. They fired him on January 7th. In those 10 days, they conducted their entire hiring process, their second round of interviews, and hired a GM. Joe Douglas was fired, I believe, at the time of recording 59 days ago, just about 2 months
right
ago.
after the Pittsburgh game, yeah.
Right after that game. And the thought was, okay, this allows them to get a head start in their GM search. And they kind of did. They brought in Thomas Dimitroff. They brought in John Robinson. They brought in Louis Riddick, guys that they could interview before the season ended. And the hope was that, okay, maybe they can get a head start as opposed to other teams who might have to wait. I mean, the Titans and Raiders didn't even, fire their GMs immediately. They had to wait a few days after the season. So that was the thought. In the end, the Jets are kind of dragging their feet with this. And that's, I guess, the product of interviewing 18 different head coach candidates and I believe 15 GM candidates. I'm not going to sit here and say that their top guy was Borgonzi and that this made them officially miss out on him and that they screwed it up. I don't know that that's true, but I don't think it's doing them any favors to wait as long as they have. Again, I don't necessarily know if Borgonzi is going to be a great GM. I can't even sit here and say he was definitely my top candidate. It's also very difficult to evaluate them anyway. But I don't. The drawn out process is doing them any favors at the moment.
Now, another report that surfaced today surrounding the Jets' general manager search. I'm going to try to get this name right, Justin. I've been pronouncing it. Brian Gutekunst, the Packers' general manager. He spoke with reporters today, and when he was asked about John Eric Sullivan, their vice president of player personnel, he basically said, he'll be missed, which is something really interesting, those cryptic words there, because the two GM jobs he interviewed were the Titans job. Well, Borgonzi's there now, and the Jets job. The Raiders requested to speak with him, but nothing was ever scheduled. They never completed an interview with him. So, Justin, Eric Sullivan to the Jets, I think he's a really intriguing candidate here. I put him in my C tier in my GM tier rankings for Jets X Factor. He started with the Packers in 2004. All of his experience as an executive comes with the Packers, really works their way up, whether it's scouting. Well, most of his experience comes as a talent evaluator, but it's a nugget I found really interesting from Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer is he has some experience working with the salary cap. He's kind of dipped his toes in those waters with the Packers, and he also apparently played a role in the search that landed Matt LaFleur, along with putting Jordan Love on their general manager's radar. So I think Eric Sullivan's a really interesting name. Thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a qualified candidate for sure. When people think of his background, when you're imagining like a regional scout sleeping in vans and traveling across the country, like that was John Eric Sullivan. That was what he was doing with the Packers for a while before he kind of worked his way up. And like you mentioned, there's some nuggets that have been dropped, kind of showing how much of an impact he has had on that organization. Like you mentioned, he was involved in the search for Matt LaFleur, and I believe it was Albert Breer that noted that he was kind of the one who put Jordan Love on the map for the Packers organization. So seems like a very qualified candidate. I know nothing's been scheduled with the Raiders yet. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have they even interviewed a GM candidate yet? I don't think
they might have interviewed Spytech from the Bucks.
They might have officially. I know they requested them. They might have officially interviewed too.
I'll check this out for you.
Yeah, their process also seems to be going very slow. Obviously, they recently fired Tom Telesco, so it wasn't like immediately after the season. So maybe Sullivan is still in play in Vegas.
Spytech's scheduled. He's the only one scheduled. They haven't even completed anything. The other requested ones are Eric Sullivan, Sheldon White, the Steelers director of pro personnel, and Brandon Brown, the Giants assistant general manager. So they haven't even completed an interview yet there.
Yeah, so they are definitely, I mean, I guess the advantage here is that even though I'm talking about the Jets are taking their time with their GM search, there's only one other team currently looking for a GM, and they seem to be behind the Jets in that search. So that's, I guess, a good sign. But yeah, John Eric Sullivan seems like a very qualified candidate. Like we mentioned, he's got the background as a scout, but he's also helped out on the cap side of things. He's helped out in the hiring process. Seems like he'd be a good candidate for the Jets. I think there's a very real chance he could get that job. I'm not sure what that would mean necessarily for the head coach hire. I think that's an interesting discussion because whereas if they go someone like a Brian Gain, there's an obvious connection there with him. Even Lance Newmark has an obvious connection with Aaron Glenn. There's no real obvious connection that other than the Packers' current defensive coordinator, which I don't think they're hiring. So it'd be interesting to see if they do hire John Eric Sullivan, where they then go in the head coach search.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you mentioned that he has no connection to Aaron Glenn. Brian Gain does. And Justin, that's a candidate I want to get into. Tight end with the Jets. He's kind of a disciple of Parcells, so to speak. 1 year as the Texans general manager, 11-5. He was their GM most of the 2019 offseason before losing a power struggle with head coach and then GM for a point, Bill O'Brien. Yeah. And then he was out there after just one full season serving as their GM, 2 drafts over there, which is pretty interesting. Now he's with the Bills as their assistant general manager. I'm a fan of him. We spoke about it before the show. He's at the top of my list. I just think someone who has general manager experience, someone who has ties to the Jets, and most importantly, Aaron Glenn, who seems like a front runner of, for this head coaching job. Thoughts on a Brian Gaynor, a Mike Greenberg, someone else who has ties to the organization, growing up as a fan of the team, and then a football administration intern in 2008 and 2009 under GM Mike Tannenbaum.
Of course. I mean, shout out Long Island's own Mike Greenberg.
Yes, sir.
Resident of Long Island. Are you from Long Island, Connor?
Of course. I live in Long Island right now. So yeah, we're you, Greenberg and I are all Long Island guys.
Oh yeah. I love it. Yeah, I mean, if the Jets go the Aaron Glenn route, Brian Gaine makes a ton of sense. They crossed over briefly as players. I mean, I don't think Gaine ever played a game for the Jets, but he was on their practice squad in 1996. And then he was a scout under Bill Parcells from 94 to 2004. Even followed him to Dallas briefly, where he served as the assistant director of pro scouting under Parcells. Both Glenn and Gaine have strong relationships with Bill Parcells, and they seem to have a relationship with each other as well. It would make a ton of sense if the Jets go the Aaron Glenn route, that they bring in Brian Gaine or even a Lance Newmark, who spent a lot of time in Detroit with Aaron Glenn. And then you mentioned Greenberg also makes a ton of sense. I mean, outside of the Long Island connection, he does have the ties to the Jets organization. And if we remember back in 2016 or whenever the 2014, 15, whenever they hired Mike McCagnon, that was
2016. I think 2015 or 16 it was.
It was 15. I think it was 15 because that was the year they won 10 games. And that was also the year that Mike McCagnon won Executive of the Year, which is a crazy statement.
Crazy to think.
Really funny to think about. That award's kind of like the NBA Coach of the Year. It feels like it's cursed.
Yeah, Ryan Grigson too.
Ryan Grigson, Executive of the Year for drafting Andrew Luck, apparently. But yeah, I mean, if you remember around that time, that was the Jets had hired a coaching or a hiring firm led by Charlie Casserly, who is a name that is kind of, after the McCagnon hire, kind of disgraced in Jets lore. Mike McCagnon was one of Charlie Casserly's kind of underlings. He was a protege of Casserly. So it wasn't a surprise when Casserly then recommended McCagnon for that job. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a similar thing this year with Mike Tannenbaum and Mike Greenberg, where, Greenberg kind of was a protege of Tannenbaum. Tannenbaum is overseeing this hiring cycle. Wouldn't be shocked if that helps Greenberg land a job. And it does seem like he's a qualified candidate, has his ties to the Jets organization as well. Makes a ton of sense to me.
Speaking of familiar friends, Josh McCown, Justin, has been floated around as an offensive coordinator or a head coach candidate. He interviewed for the job today. Adam Schefter, appearing on the Pat McAfee show, went ahead and said, hey, he's not leaving Minnesota unless it's for a head coaching job. Now, this is really interesting. McCown is someone who only has 2 years of coaching experience. Last year with the Panthers, he was their quarterback coach for 12 games of the season before getting fired after an 11-1 start. Now he's the quarterback coach in Minnesota, where he's really kind of helped orchestrate a resurgence for Sam Darnold. Obviously, it didn't go as planned in the first round of the playoffs, but an overall great season for Sammy D. So, he's someone who interviewed for the Texans job, I believe, just after his playing career in 21 and 22 with 0 head coaching experience whatsoever. So he knows what it's like to interview for these big time jobs. I would love him as an OC candidate. You could potentially sell me on him as a head coach with the right staff, some of his connections that are pretty interesting. Doug Peterson on the offensive side of the ball. You bring him in as a veteran play caller. Defensive side of the ball, a familiar face, and Mike Pettin, the Jets' former defensive coordinator under Rex Ryan. They're on the Minnesota staff together, and Lovie Smith, who he played under. So I feel like if the Jets were to go ahead and bring him in as a head coach, the most important thing is you get a staff around him with guys who have head coaching experience. Thoughts on the Uncle Josh hype? Are you buying it? Do you think he has enough upside to be the team's next head coach?
Oh, I think the upside is definitely there. He comes from the Kevin O'Connell tree, Kevin O'Connell being one of the best head coaches in the NFL at the moment. An offensive, I don't want to throw the word genius around lightly, but he is.
Because he hasn't called plays yet.
Correct, yeah. But O'Connell specifically is regarded as one of the best offensive minds in football. Josh McCown comes from that tree, and obviously we don't need to, Jets fans don't need an introduction to Josh McCown as a player and as a person. He was beloved in that organization when he was there. He's been beloved by pretty much every team that he's been a part of, and highly regarded as a future possible NFL head coach. Now, it's very early for those talks. It is extreme. It was very early when the Texans interviewed him a few years ago. It is still early now in 2025 that he's getting interview hype with the New York Jets. But I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. He's not my top tier. Mike and I, my co-host in the Jet Press podcast, did a whole tier list. And in our tier list, we had, I believe, A tier was Mike Vrabel, who is unfortunately no longer. Brian Flores was, I think, the bottom of our A tier. Aaron Glenn and Joe Brady
Here's mine. I'll pull mine up. This is mine that I made on the show not too long ago. I had Flores, Vrabel, Glenn in the first tier, Joe Brady and Matt Nagy in the B tier, Darren Rizzi, Arthur Smith, Josh McCown C, D, Vance Joseph, Rivera, Bobby Slowick, F, Steve Spagnuolo, Brian Greasy, and Rex Ryan.
Totally fair. McCown is a swing for the fences hire. That's what he is. Maybe you're early, and the phrase that everyone keeps getting thrown around, don't attribute this to me, but it's better to be too early than to be too late. It's better to hire a guy that you have a strong conviction about now. If you really think this guy's gonna be a really good head coach, which I believe he's going to be a really good head coach one day. That might be too soon. Maybe you bring him in and he's a little overwhelmed. That's why you mentioned bringing in someone like a Doug Peterson or an experienced offensive mind, somebody who's not a Nathaniel Hackett, right? Somebody who has a really good reputation around the league and has been in the league for a long time. I think that'd be a great move for the Jets to hire Josh McCown and do that. Again, it's probably not my top choice just because of the obvious risk and the red flags. I mean, he's coached less than 2 full seasons at the NFL level. That is pretty absurd for a guy to be doing that and then get head coach hype, but it's possible. And I'd love to take a swing for the fences approach with that, as opposed to hiring a retread like an Arthur Smith
or a Matt Nagy.
Two guys who I have zero interest in, because while I think there's a floor with those guys, you're probably not going to win 3 games. You're probably going to win a little bit more than that. The ceiling is so low. And in the NFL, especially in a conference where you have powerhouses like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, all of whom have elite quarterbacks and great organizational structure, I'd rather take a swing on guys like Josh McCown or even a Bobby Slowick, who I know you had him in D tier. Look, Slowick this year was not good. And I fully acknowledge that. The Texans offense took a major step back. But if you want to take a swing for the fences and say, hey, look, his 2023 tape was really good. He comes from a very reputable coaching tree. I wouldn't hate it. Again, not my top choice. I wouldn't have him above a lot of the other guys I mentioned, but I would still have him above an Arthur Smith or Matt Nagy just because the ceiling isn't there. And I don't want a Jets team with a ceiling of 8 wins because their head coach is Arthur Smith. I have no interest in that.
Everyone smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We greatly appreciate all of the support here on the show, joined by Justin Freed of the Jet Press. We have 72 of you guys watching on YouTube, and we have 22 likes. Math is not mathing here, Justin. Smash the like button, guys. It's free. It helps the show grow tremendously. Now, I'll say this about Bobby Slowick. When they interviewed him yesterday, I went on and I said, this is the thing. I think he has some of the most upside out of all the candidates, but he also has the lowest floor. That's the risk I think you take, and that kind of relays the same thought to Josh McCown. I just think Josh McCown has the potential to be a better coach, in my opinion, than Bobby Slowick. They're 2 young, innovative offensive minds. You mentioned McCown having less than 2 years of coaching experience at the NFL level. Justin, he was an 18-year journeyman quarterback. Like, he was a mentor. He was a backup. He was a motivator throughout his career as a backup. So I think there's something there. His ability to connect with players in the modern-day NFL after just retiring in 2020, I think that's a special connection there that doesn't particularly grow on trees if you decide to hire an Arthur Smith or even, Rex Ryan. Thank God that's out of the question. I could go on for days and days explaining why the Jets should not hire Rex Ryan whatsoever. So you give me the right staff around Josh McCown. Why can he not be the next Zach Taylor, who went from being the Rams assistant quarterback coach to the Bengals head coach, where he's done great things? Like, I'd rather wait a few years. I think the goal is to win a Super Bowl. Put the past 14 years behind us. That's why I went back and forth why they should not give up a first-round pick for Mike Tomlin. He is great. My favorite head coach in all of football. Has not won a playoff game, has not made it far in the playoffs since 2016. The goal here is to win a Super Bowl. My whole thing when Mike Vrabel was on the board, even Brian Flores, we're going to get into him in a little. He's really interesting. But my whole thing was, this team has still has talent on the roster. We can't deny that despite a 5-12 year. They have potential to win. Mike Vrabel's the coach of the Jets last year. That team has the potential to be 12-5. That's just how many games they lost from penalties, poor coaching, Greg Zuerlein as their kicker. So much that just went wrong that a good coach can prevent from happening. But now at this point, Mike Vrabel's off the board. Josh McCown not coming here as an OC concerns me. What's Brian Flores' plan now for the offensive coordinator job if he gets the head coaching position? Why not just take a big swing on a Joe Brady, on a Bobby Slowick potentially, on a Josh McCown? Like, we've been losing for 14 seasons. Their ceiling is a Super Bowl. We don't know what their floor is right now. Like, come on. I want to be competitive. I want to make the playoffs, but I'd rather, hopefully win a Super Bowl in 5-7 years with Bobby Slowick, with Josh McCown, and then rather you bring in a Matt Nagy and Arthur Smith, you get into the playoffs at 9-8 the next 3 seasons, and boom, lose 40-0 the first round. You have to travel to M&T Bank Stadium to face off against the Ravens, and you're just bounced 40-0 in the first round. Put the past 14 years behind us. I understand we want to make the playoffs, but let's keep in mind the goal here is to win a Super Bowl. I spoke about Brian Flores. That's who I wanted to get into next. He's emerged as a top candidate, spoke to the Jets today. This is time in Miami, whether it was rumors of him alienating players, Tua calling it, the worst few years of his life. Does that concern you at all? And also, the offensive side of the ball was a massive concern when he was the head coach there. Several offensive line coaches, several offensive coordinators. Like, he's someone who has head coaching experience, but would you prefer a younger, innovative offensive mind in Slowick or McCown over going kind of that retread route with Brian Flores?
I think I'd still prefer Flores to Slowick, probably over McCown. When we did our tier list, we had him ranked at A tier because the understanding was that McCown was probably coming as OC. Now that we know that that's not happening, I have more concerns because to that point, it was like, okay, the red flag here is obviously everything that kind of went down in Miami. And while I think that Brian Flores, I'll start with the positives. I think Brian Flores in Miami laid the groundwork for being a really good head coach one day. I feel like there were a lot of things, especially in those early days with the tank for 2 a year where they were expected to win 0 games. I mean, they were essentially trying to win 0 games. He still won 5 games with that team. And so many Dolphins fans were like, oh, he's too good for his own good, for us. Like, he's winning too many games. Flores did a really good job getting the most out of that roster. And it seems like he was really liked in that building that first year. Then things kind of took a turn for the worse. And you can listen to what Ryan Fitzpatrick has said. And I think those are all valid takes from a guy who was in that locker room, who knows the situation very well. I know Jets fans have certain beliefs and feelings about Ryan Fitzpatrick. I take what he says pretty seriously because he was in that building. He knows more than we do.
He was the quarterback the last time the Jets had a winning season.
Exactly. There's some credence there. But
Agreed.
I think that it was a bad situation, and I don't think he handled it well, whether it was his ego getting in the way or trying to do what a lot of Patriots, former Bill Belichick assistants do and trying to copy that Belichick mantra and insert it somewhere else. It doesn't work. I mean, look at Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniels. There's a ton of examples. Vrabel kind of being the exception, but Vrabel's a weird situation because he wasn't a Belichick assistant. He played for him. Different situation there. But I think Flores kind of made a lot of those mistakes. Now, where the green flags come in with that is he spent time in Pittsburgh. He spent time in Minnesota. If you are going to learn from your past mistakes as a head coach, especially the style that Flores had, going to those 2 locations and learning under Mike Tomlin, learning under Kevin O'Connell, 2 guys who stylistically could not be more different than Brian Flores. They are vastly different coaches from a personal perspective, from a schematic standpoint, very, very different. So I think that was really, really good for him. And that is a great resume booster. And by all accounts, it seems like he has learned from that to the point where, because he laid that groundwork and showed me that I think he can be a good head coach, I'm still willing to take a chance on him and I'd be happy with him. He's not my first choice because of those red flags, because of the red flags of what happened in Miami. Now, because of the red flags of, I don't know what's going on with his offensive staff, because like you alluded to, it was not particularly good when he was in Miami. There was a lot of turnover there. The offenses were never good. And part of it was the personnel wasn't great, but those coaching staffs, looking back on them, are real rough. Like they do not have a lot of standouts. So I would have concerns about that. He has made more connections. He has made some connections in Pittsburgh, connections in Minnesota that maybe could help him land another a better offensive coordinator, better offensive staff. But it's a concern. And I think those 2 concerns now probably would drop him the B tier for me. But he's still a good candidate to me in an overall underwhelming list. I would say there's not a lot of great candidates. I think that the Jets are speaking to guys that I would get excited about. Flores, I could buy into. I could get excited about that. I think he's not in the tier of like a Joe Brady. To me, might be my top choice. And you mentioned it before. I would love that. I don't think they're going that route. It doesn't sound like they have a ton of interest. Maybe they surprise everyone and out of nowhere on
who knows
Friday next week, maybe a week from today, they hire Joe Brady and everyone is shocked, and that'd be amazing. But of the realistic candidates, I think Flores is a good option with obvious red flags.
Yeah, I agree. There's pros and cons to every candidate. I mean, everyone was fired for a reason. I think that's what we kind of have to sit and realize. Justin, when this search first kicked off, I said the only head coach I would feel comfortable picking the next general manager is Mike Vrabel. Well, he's off the board. He's off to Foxborough and the New England Patriots next head coach. Where do you stand right now? Are you for potentially bringing a head coach in the building first, or do you want the GM to make the next decision? Are there any head coach candidates you feel comfortable picking the next GM? I heard Aaron Aaron Glenn kind of wants to have a say in the general manager hire. I'm a huge fan of Glenn, Justin, but he's a first-time head coach. I don't know if I want him picking the next GM of this team.
I don't know if it's as simple as like, because with Vrabel, there's obviously he has a reputation there, and he was a good head coach in the NFL and was highly regarded around the league. I don't think any of the guys that the Jets are speaking to right now have a reputation and have the pull to be able to straight up hire their own GM. But I think those conversations are had during the interview process. When the Jets are talking to Aaron Glenn, they're saying, hey, who are you bringing in your staff, and who would you like to, in a perfect world, who would you be open to working with as your general manager? And I think those conversations go both ways, where they're talking to GMs and they're saying, hey, if you're interviewing, if you become the general manager of the Jets, what does your staff look like? Who do you want to work with as your head coach? Those conversations are had with both sides. So I don't think the Jets, well, what I do believe the Jets are going to hire GM first. I'd be very surprised if they hired their head coach before that. I think they're still finishing up interviews. I don't think they've interviewed Joe Witt, and they
haven't interviewed Witt. They interviewed Halfley today. I think Witt might be the only one who hasn't officially interviewed.
Because technically Greasy declined. So
which is mind-boggling. Someone who's been a quarterback coach for 2 years declines a head coaching.
I think he just looked at it like Aaron Glenn looked at the Patriots job and was like, well, clearly I'm not getting this. So I have no interest.
Still something nice to put on your resume. Like, I don't think Glenn wanted to be a victim of the Rooney Rule crap they were doing there. Yeah.
I was surprised when Greasy turned it down too, because I'm like, this is usually something you'd like to at least be like, look, I'm getting head coach consideration, but to each their own, I guess. But yeah, they're still going through, I guess, their head coach process. I mean, would either of us be shocked if tomorrow it's reported they're interviewing another head coach candidate? No, I don't think anybody would be shocked at this point. With the GM search, it seems like they're done adding candidates. They finished their first round of interviews. That second round is happening anytime now. I mean, I would have hoped it would even happen as soon as today, that we'd get reported like, hey, they're going to meet with, so-and-so next Monday or whatever. But I do think early next week, they'll start up that second round of interviews with GM candidates. Probably by the end of the week, they'll have a good idea of who they want to hire, you would hope. And maybe we even get an official announcement by this time next week. That'd be ideal. And then after that, they'll kind of go into the head coach hire. I don't think it'll take a significant amount of time after the GM is hired for them to hire a head coach, because I think they'll already have a decent idea. Like if they hire a Lance Newmark, most people are going to assume, okay, they're probably wanting to hire Aaron Glenn here. So I don't think they're necessarily going to let an Aaron Glenn or a Brian Flores or whoever choose their GM, but they're going to have an idea of which, whenever they hire a GM, they're going to have an idea of which direction they're going in with the head coach hire.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Appreciate all of your support. Don't forget about our membership raffle. Every membership you give gets you a ticket to win a Garrett Wilson signed mini helmet, Wayne Corbett signed football free item from our merch store, or a channel emoji in your honor. If you want your question to cut the line, super chatted in. John B coming in with his 1 month super chat, and he says Flores head coach, McCown OC, Dennis Allen DC. Well, John, the report that surfaced today states McCown's not going to leave for an offensive coordinator job, so you take him out of the question. Flores head coach Dennis Allen DC. I've been really intrigued by Dennis Allen as a defensive coordinator, and Darren Rizzi being the team's next special teams coordinator. I was chatting with some people, and I came up with potential combination of Aaron Glenn head coach, Brian Gain GM, John Morton, who he's connected to, former Jets OC from 2011, Dennis Allen defensive coordinator, or Kelvin Shepard. I think that would make more sense based on their connection, and Darren Rizzi as the special teams coordinator. Thoughts on this comp here?
It's going to make me feel old, because I watched Kelvin Shepard when he played in the NFL. That makes me feel real old right now. Yeah, I'd love that. Obviously, there's the Saints connection with Dennis Allen and Aaron Glenn and Darren Rizzi. Makes a ton of sense to me. John Morton, man, they don't know about those Josh McCown years. They don't know about that 1 year with John Morton as OC where he kicked ass. I mean, that was genuinely, it sounds really bad to say, it was genuinely one of the best offensive coordinator jobs that the Jets have had in the last 15 years. Was, I think, 2017 when Morton was there with McCown. I mean, McCown was getting like, there was a point in the season where they were like 500. McCown was getting like Pro Bowl buzz. It was nuts. Weird time to remember now. But yeah, John Morton, thought he did a good job then. Obviously, there's the Saints connection with all those guys. Makes a ton of sense. Dennis Allen's been around for a long time. I do very much like him as a DC candidate. Obviously, he's on the older side. He's more experienced, which is a good thing, but you also want to make sure that a guy like that is still adapting to the NFL. I mean, he was the Saints DC for a while before he was made their head coach. So he has a ton of experience there. Also, I think was a DC briefly in Denver. So he has plenty of experience. I like that. And Darren Rizzi, it makes sense because they brought him in for the head coach interview. Obviously, he's not going to get a head coach job.
Yeah.
The Jets, I think the Saints obviously interviewed him because he is
like the Jets did to Jeff Ulbrich.
Exactly. It's the kind favor to do. He's an interim guy, but he's not going to get the head coach job there. So it would make sense if he's somewhere as a special teams coordinator. Maybe if you go the Aaron Glenn route, maybe you bring him on as special teams coordinator plus, assistant
head coach. Yeah.
Maybe they do that with Dennis Allen because of his experience. Either way, getting experienced guys on the staff, if you hire a first-time head coach like Aaron Glenn, makes a ton of sense to me, and I think that's the route they should go.
Justin, I honestly love Rizzi for what he did those final 8 games. The crazy story before his first game as a head coach, the culture around a Saints team that I think has really no talent on that roster. They're obviously in cap hell right now. No talent on that roster. I mean, he went 3-5 the final 8 games of the season as their head coach, and he basically pushed the Bucs to the final whistle for their playoff spot. So I think there's a lot to like with Darren Rizzi. Just I'm not particularly in love with him as a head coach candidate. Justin, you spoke a lot about Joe Brady. I see some comments in here. Mother effing Chew says Joe Brady's intriguing. June the GM says Joe Brady's overrated. We all know what happened his first stint as an OC with the Panthers. It was kind of a disaster there. Now he goes and he kind of revives his career with the Bills as their interim offensive coordinator last year, gets the full-time role this year. What about Joe Brady do you like so much? Is it the inflated numbers with Josh Allen? Is it their overall offensive success under his play calling? What makes him such a strong candidate for you?
I've honestly been impressed with him, even going back to before the Panthers, when he put his name on the map at LSU. That was kind of where Joe Brady first gained the attention of the football world. Now, he wasn't the OC, but he was the passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach, was credited with doing a lot with that offense. That was the Joe Burrow offense. That was a ton of future NFL talent, NFL wide receivers. That was LSU's offense went from being, I think, a middle of the pack offense before that to, I think it was the best offense in college football that year, or one of the top offenses. And a lot of that was Joe Brady and the work that he did. Goes to Carolina, is their offensive coordinator for a couple of years. I think he got a little bit scapegoated there because Matt Rule, who I loved as a potential head coach, came in for the Jets, and I was very
wrong. Oh yeah, well back then I was about to say right now.
No. Not in the year 2025, not in the big 2025, but back before they hired Adam Gase, I was like, yeah, let's get Matt Rule in the building. Let's do this. Turned out to be very wrong there because he did not do a very good job in Carolina. But I think Joe Brady kind of ended up getting scapegoated and was a victim of bad talent around him and a really rotten structure with Matt Rule at the head coach position. Then he goes to Buffalo, serves as their quarterback coach for a couple of years. Obviously, he's got Josh Allen there. I'm not going to credit him with Josh Allen's development or anything.
No.
But then he goes and becomes their offensive coordinator after they fire Ken Dorsey, who I don't think Dorsey did a bad job with the Bills. I think when they
some clock stuff, yeah.
When they fired Dorsey, I think some of it was honestly, it sounds derivative to say this, but I think the Bills were getting pretty unlucky that year. Like that was, I think they were like around 500, but they had really good offensive numbers. Some of it was just like because people were getting on Josh Allen with the interceptions. A lot of it was like tipped interceptions. Watching those games back, the offense was still good under Ken Dorsey, but then Joe Brady takes over.
Yes.
Flips. It flips. Not that it was bad under Dorsey, but it was great under Joe Brady. And now Josh Allen is having arguably the best year of his entire career right now with Joe Brady in his first year as a full-time offensive coordinator. Once again, kind of like the McCown or Slowick stuff where I'm like, look, if you got a young offensive mind who has a very good track record of finding success here, you take a swing on someone like that. That's been my opinion all along. And comparing Brady's resume or Joe Brady's resume to a Josh McCown, who, he's done really good things this year with Minnesota. It's 1 year, and it's not like his previous stint in Carolina was particularly great. And Bobby Slowick, who I thought did a really good job in 2023, and then everything kind of went to crap this year. And it was obviously a bad offensive line situation. You can maybe point to CJ Stroud regression, whatever. Slowick did not do a good job this year. So that's a stain on his resume. Joe Brady has the cleanest resume of those three guys. And I think if you want to take a swing for the fences, you want to take a home run swing where you're hiring this guy and he has the potential to be the next Sean McVay, to be the next Matt LaFleur, to be the next Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell, whatever. Any of those number of, younger offensive-minded guys, that would be a swing for me because while yes, the Jets need a guy who can change the culture. Like, we're not denying that. They can't just hire any random guy because he's an offensive-minded, analytics-driven, whatever buzzword you want. They can't, just go for those guys. But Joe Brady, to me, has a really, really good track record, and he has that resume. I'm all for it if you want to take a swing for the fences because it is advantageous to have that offensive-minded head coach. Whereas, like we mentioned, you go the Brian Flores route. Okay, say he brings over say he were to even bring over Josh McCown, right? Like say in this hypothetical world, Brian Flores is able to bring over Josh McCown. Well, if Josh McCown is who we say he is and who we think he is, he might get a head coach job in a couple of years. And now you're stuck trying to find another offensive coordinator. You don't run into that issue if you already have that offensive-minded guy as your head coach in Joe Brady. I mean, look at Tampa. I mean, Tampa had Dave Canales last year, and half the fan base wanted to make him head coach instead of Todd Bowles. Now they have Liam Cohen, and it's the same sentiment where it's like, you can't keep losing these guys for – and look, and I love Todd Bowles, and I wish him all the success in the world, but ask any Bucs fan who they'd rather have as their head coach right now. It's not Todd Bowles. They'd rather have the offensive guy so that they can keep a Liam Cohen who has done great things with Baker Mayfield, or even a Dave Canales who previously was doing things with great things with Baker Mayfield. That's where I kind of lean Joe Brady over an Aaron Glenn or a Brian Flores, because I think the upside is there. It's just the upside is a lot higher with a Joe Brady. I'd love that hire. I don't think that's the direction the Jets go, but if I could pick any candidate right now who I want, it'd probably be Joe Brady.
Justin, I really appreciate you hopping on. I know we said 30 minutes at first. Do you have time for a few calls? It's all good if not. I know.
Go for it, buddy.
Busy you are. Awesome. We'll start it off. Let's go over to the phone lines. It's our guy Neil under the name Still Want Rodgers in 2025 is joining us on the program. Okay. Neil, how you doing?
Good, Connor. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Saw your show on breezing around YouTube. I see you on here. And I said, you got Justin on. I think, Justin, you were on Shake's show earlier in the week, right?
Not earlier in the week. No.
Last week, was it?
No, not anytime recently, but I've been on before.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to know what your guys' thoughts are on Mike McCarthy. Well, I don't hear one word about Mike McCarthy. 3 out of 5 years as a coach in Dallas, 12 wins is not a slouch. If we had 1 year at 12 wins, we'd all be doing somersaults. What do you think?
Justin, take it away.
All right. Come on, guys. We got to get experience in here. We're talking about a lot of first-timers. We've been through that road many, many times with first-time coordinators turning to head coaches. And through my experience, which watching football and the Jets is longer than your combined ages, I would say to you that experience is the most important thing in my mind. And leadership, again, there are a lot, there's 4 out of the 6 teams out there are first-time coaches, right? McVay, if you look at all the guys that are out there. However, Andy Reid always ends up on top, right? And if you take the talent level, I mean, we could say Pittsburgh if you took. And again, same thing with the Ravens. Those 2 teams are going to be there possibly. McDermott might do it this year for Buffalo, but he still hasn't been able to do it yet. He still has to take down the Ravens, and he still has to take down Kansas City. And, so from that perspective, the Jets are a special situation. They need experience because, again, you have a different animal here. You have the media, which is, ridiculous. It's so hard to deal with the media here in New York. It's like going on stage with 50,000 people every day after the game, every Sunday when you feel like you want to kill somebody, and then you get attacked by every jerk out there. Then you have to read it in the paper the next day. And it's a hard thing to be the coach of the Jets. Mike McCarthy just got fired from Dallas. If there's ever a guy that's callous enough to face the New York media, it's going to be McCarthy, right? Now, if a coach is worried about a meddlesome owner, certainly Woody Johnson is not going to be as meddlesome as
Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones. So, from that perspective, guys, I think that's a tremendous candidate. I'm really, really disappointed they haven't requested an interview for him. I just don't get it. And same thing with Gruden. I'm not saying, Gruden is the answer, but I'd like them to look a little bit at some experienced coaches because, again, it's all about leadership, guys. And McCarthy, again, would be a good way to use Rodgers as the bridge, keep Devontae Adams. I know there's been a lot of guys are not thrilled about that idea. I know you guys want to look to the future, but the reality is We have a roster now that's pretty damn good. That with a few tweaks, I mean, when you guys look at it, we lost. We were 2-5 in games we had the lead in this year, which never happened before. That's historical. Okay, we almost lost the Miami game, which would have made history on blowing leads into the fourth quarter. We had Zerline miss what? One game-winning kick against Denver. He makes with his eyes closed 2 years prior, right?
Yep.
Then he blew the Buffalo game. That was 2 kicks. So, guys, we really were inches away from being a 9 or 10 win team with the situation we had this year, despite the crappy coaching we had. So we're going to have better coaching. I think we have to look at McCarthy. That's my number one guy right now. I'm not, you could sell me on Aaron Glenn. Who do you like, Connor? Who's your number 1 and 2?
Right now, my 1 and 2, I'd say number 1, it's between Glenn and Flores. Right now, for me, they're 1A and 1B, just because although Glenn would be a first-time head coach, I think he has the intangibles to be a solid head coach in the league. Neil, you spoke a lot about dealing with the media. Well, Aaron Glenn knows what it's like to be a prime figure, so to speak, in this media market and a part of this organization, whether it was 8 years after being a first-round pick with the team in 1994, or returning to the organization for 2 seasons after his retirement as a personnel scout. He knows what it's like to be a New York Jet. He has a fiery personality. Here's a comparison for you, Neil. He reminds me a lot of Herm Edwards. He's going to bring a lot of energy. He's going to discipline these players. I think Aaron Glenn
He also kind of reminds me a little bit of Salah too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of throwing a dart here. Is my point, guys. You can't. We said it. Everybody kind of like went in the direction of, look, we tried it with the first timers. Because again, coordinator, coach is 2 totally different jobs, not the same thing. A CEO is a CFO cannot very easily be the CEO of a major corporation. They're 2 different people. And it's the same thing in football. He's got, Aaron Glenn, I agree with you, Connor. He's fiery. He knows the team. He has a little now another problem I have, another pause I have is he's going to be fighting with personnel people with Ben Johnson if he gets a first-time coaching job. What happens then, Connor? Where are we then? Now we have an inferior staff. I know he knows a lot of football people around the league. He's not just Detroit-centric, but that's a problem right there, okay? We get Borgonzi. I'll tell you another one I would not be totally disappointed with. I wouldn't be disappointed if we got Borgonzi.
Borgonzi was hired by the Titans earlier today.
Oh, he was? Shit,
yeah.
I missed that.
It's been made official, unfortunately.
Son of a bitch.
Well, listen.
I mean, I like Borgonzi, and I like to team him up with the with
Nagy?
With Matt Spags.
Spagnuolo.
Spagnuolo. Oh, okay. I mean,
hey, Justin, let me tell you something.
We got
Aaron Glenn can't shine Spags' shoes. Let's face it. You're talking about a Hall of Fame coordinator, defensive coordinator. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He might be the top. You could argue that Spags is a top 5 defensive coordinator in the history of football. Giants, Super Bowls with. Come on. Now, he was a crappy head coach the first time around. Mm-hmm. No doubt. However, I would take a chance on a guy like him. You know he's going to turn the defense around. You know he's going to make the defense amazing. And if we would have had him with Borgonzi, now we could do a little poaching on the Chiefs and poach some of their staff away. You follow me? Especially after they win the 3rd Super Bowl, if they do it this year, then they don't mind losing staff. Detroit is already going to get raped by what's his name? The offensive coordinator.
Ben Johnson, yeah.
Ben Johnson. Is Ben Johnson interviewing? Who's he interviewing with, Connor?
Raiders.
Yeah, he's just picking the litter. The Jaguars, I think.
Bears. I think he's either going to go to the Raiders or the Bears. I think Cohen will go to the Jaguars.
Yeah.
I think Tom Brady is going to play a huge part in that Raiders head coach search, and I think he's going to do his best to lure Johnson into the building after missing out on Vrabel.
That's what it seems like. I mean, look. Back to McCarthy for a second. I don't think McCarthy is a bad candidate by any means.
No.
Not
Candidate? No, to me, he jumped right to the top, Chuck.
Right, and I would not have been opposed to the Jets interviewing at all. In fact, I'm a little surprised that they're not bringing him in. Like you said, there's a really good floor with Mike McCarthy. The Jets are going to be a solid NFL team with Mike McCarthy as
Let me tell you something. Do you know? I mean, look what he did. He overachieved with Dak Prescott. I mean, Dak Prescott is –
Dak's really good. Dak's a really good
Yeah, but you know what? Let me tell you something. You want to win a game, all right? I give you – if you put Aaron Rodgers on Dallas Cowboys roster this year, do you think he's better than Dak Prescott the way he played this year, or you think Dak is better?
I think Dak Prescott is better.
You think Prescott is better than Rodgers?
In 2024, yeah. Absolutely.
Justin, I'm with you here. I mean, the accuracy we saw from Rodgers, he was bottom of the league in basically every accuracy metric. And the excuse is, well, the most dropped passes. That's why we have adjusted completion percentage. Mm-hmm. And he was still in the 30s in that.
Connor, the last 4 games he played, when it was the last 4 he was truly healthy, what do you have, 13 touchdowns and 1 interception or 2 interceptions?
Who did he play? The Jaguars? Well, the Bills. The one legit team he played in that final stretch, the Bills. They lost 40-14. He scored 0 points. He came out of the game with like 3 interceptions and 115 yards.
He played well against Miami. He played well enough to win that Miami game.
Miami does not have a good defense, though. That is the thing.
Okay, I think the conversation with Aaron Rodgers, if we're talking, because you mentioned wanting him back in 2025, I think if you're looking at it strictly as who is the best possible feasible quarterback option the Jets could have for 2025, it's probably Aaron Rodgers. Like, they're probably not going to be a guy.
It's not probably. It's a definitely. You made me another one.
Justin, you're going to have to.
Listen to me, Connor. Stay with me.
Yeah, I got you.
Who's your choice? Who is a better bridge than Rodgers?
I'm telling you, Neil, you're going to go off on me right now, but you give me Tyrod Taylor, you draft a quarterback, and you sign Andy
Taylor is a 5-game quarterback.
That's why I said you draft a quarterback. You draft Jackson.
Who am I going to draft in this year's draft? That's going to come
Jackson
on
Dart
in the
second round.
Games in
Jackson Dart in the second round. Jalen Milroe, you take a dart throw at him in the third round. He falls there. Sign a veteran quarterback to come and back him up. Jordan Travis is going to be healthy. I've been the biggest guy of don't count on anything from Jordan Travis. You sign Justin Fields in free agency. Tyrod, Justin Fields, and Jordan Travis, I think, is the best scenario for the Jets next season in the quarterback position.
Listen,
and then who is he going to throw to? Devontae Adams is gone because Rodgers is gone. Who's he going to throw to?
Garrett Wilson.
Who's he going to throw to? Gibson?
Garrett Wilson, Ted McMillan, and they'll sign Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, or T. Higgins in free agency.
All right, listen. I think the Aaron
have
Rodgers,
a lot more optimism than me, Connor.
The Aaron Rodgers conversation. The Aaron Rodgers conversation is.
And you guys got to realize something right now. The guy came off an Achilles, and he played better. See, here's the way you look at it. Okay, everybody wants to talk about how old he is. I mean, the reality is he moved around. He played a lot better in the last 6 games. He was mobile, and he was getting better at the end of the season, not worse. And Connor, take a look at Cousins with the same injury. What'd he do?
Well, Kirk Cousins is different than Aaron
younger.
Rodgers. And is someone like Aaron Rodgers, you look at his production, you're telling me that's worth $63 million?
No. First of all, Connor, you're talking about dead cap. You're not talking about his salary.
Well, his cap number's at $13 million. I view the difference of 49 and 63. I think that is a huge difference.
Right,
Connor, he already said he would restructure the contract.
I don't care. Some of it is bonuses. Do you think he's going to want to take another pay cut after $35
He said he would. Connor, he took a $35 million pay cut.
There is no guarantee he's going to want to take a pay cut.
If Aaron Rodgers takes a significant pay cut,
it's
going to have to be $20 million or more.
He does not need the money. It's not about the money with him. He wants to play. And I will tell you this, Pittsburgh would grab him in a heartbeat over Russell Wilson. I'll tell you that right now.
They would, because he'd still be
because they'll get the Devontae Adams. If you put him up with Devontae Adams, Rodgers, and who's the receiver on Pittsburgh? 14.
George Pickens.
You put those 3 on the field, you think you're going to do better or worse than they did this year? You tell me right now.
That has nothing to do with the salary cap.
Right. Okay. The conversation around Aaron Rodgers is not necessarily like, who is the best performing quarterback the Jets could have next year?
It's a cap hit. All it is, Connor, is a cap hit.
Listen.
Wait. How did Denver do not taking a huge cap hit on Russell Wilson. They still got to the
That's
playoffs.
once in a million. That is not
because
normal.
Russell Wilson was still getting paid by Denver, so he took a minimum contract with those Steelers. That's likely what Aaron Rodgers could
But they
do.
still took a big cap hit. Denver took a huge cap hit.
Denver took a big cap hit. Yeah. Oh, you're saying that what cap did the Broncos take?
They had a young quarterback that came in.
Same thing with Watson, with Cleveland. They made the playoffs with what's his name?
And where are they now? Where are they now?
So,
okay.
The conversation.
Still, Connor, they made the playoffs.
And they got
the issue is not 2020.
demolished.
The issue is not 2025 cap. His cap hit in 2025 is going to be 23 million. That's extremely affordable. That's not the issue. The issue is 2026 and 2027 cap.
I get it.
Let's bring back.
What you guys don't want to do is you don't want to take the chance of going all in once again. You want to go backwards and do a rebuild and blow the whole thing up. You're going to lose our 4 guys next year. After next year, guys, we got to run it back the way we had it this year. Get a couple more. That's why I said to you, we lost games by 3 points. We lost 1-score games. We could very easily win 1-score games if our defense would wake up, because that was the biggest weakness on our team. Our defense was trash.
Rodgers was 0-5 with the.
All right, let me break it down.
0-5 with what, Connor?
The final. He won 1 game when he had the opportunity to march down the field.
I don't understand why you're saying he was 1 wide. The team stunk, Connor. Did you see the defense?
The Jets were
It was 28th in the league, Connor.
Let's hear Justin.
Let me break this down, right? Okay, because the conversation on Aaron Rodgers is more than just on-field performance. It is twofold. It's a conversation, threefold, because it's one, a conversation about how good he is still, which I still think he's a fine starting quarterback. Like, he was a quality starting quarterback this year, even in spite of the injuries he's playing through. If healthy, I think Aaron Rodgers could be the 14th-ish best quarterback next year. Now, that's a big if, because he was not healthy for most of this year. Like you mentioned, when he was healthy, he played pretty well. He did okay. But expecting him to stay fully healthy for a full 17-game season after he's missed all or part of the last 3 years is optimistic, to say the least. And I think that's part of the discussion. The second part of it is finances, where if you cut him this offseason and just take the full dead cap hit up front, you are taking on $49 million in dead cap, which is a lot, but you are cutting him now and you are getting that money off the books immediately. Whereas if you bring a new regime in and they stick with Aaron Rodgers for another year, which I'd be shocked if any new regime wanted to do that, because you are destroying your cap in 2026 and 2027, assuming you split that up into a post-June 1st cut. Now you are behind the 8 ball 2 years from now. So basically, if you think the Jets can compete in 2025, right? If you think that if you bring Aaron Rodgers back and you can win a Super Bowl next year, then it makes sense to bring Aaron Rodgers back, right? If that's what you think, then that's fine. I disagree. I don't think they can win a Super Bowl next year with Aaron Rodgers, their quarterback. But if you think that, then it makes sense to bring him back. I'm in the camp that says it's probably best to reset now, as opposed to the outside chance of maybe competing in 2025. Because if they bring back Rodgers and he stays healthy and they have a competent coaching staff, yeah, I think they could win 10 or 11 games. I think it's possible. I don't think they win a Super Bowl, and I don't think the odds that
let's put it this way: if Aaron Rodgers
are worth ruining your financial situation in 2026 and 2027.
That's the difference. I'm okay with that, and I'll cross that road when I get to it. I'm saying right now we still have a roster that's not going to get better in 2026. It's going to get worse in 2026.
Why would it get worse?
Yeah,
because we're going to lose either Garrett. We're all the guys are
getting traded. Let's
wait. We have 4 guys that are going to be up for extensions. We can't sign all 4 of them, can we?
You have a 5th-year option on them, except Brees.
Yeah,
Brees go ahead.
Not necessarily, but you also have assets to make other moves. There's no reason to think that the Jets roster in 2026 is definitively going to be worse than it is right now. Like, they're not. If you get rid of Rodgers, in 2026 is going to look great. Like, it's not going to be an
Justin, we had the best draft ever with 4 really good guys right now that are all up for extension. You're not signing all 4 again.
No,
and don't think for a minute that we're going to go find 4 more great draft picks. How do we know we're going to get a draft as good as the one we had in 2022?
It's a complicated discussion even with those players. One, Jermaine Johnson just tore his Achilles. Who knows what he's going to look like when he comes back? They already drafted Will McDonald. Hell, they might draft another edge this year. I wouldn't say it's a certain that Jermaine Johnson is definitely going to be getting extended, regardless of what they do at quarterback. And I think the same is true for Breece Hall, who, look, he plays the running back position, which, as we know, is a very interesting conversation when it comes to extensions. He's coming off not a great year. He showed some ball security issues. If he does that again in 2025 and has another underwhelming season, I don't think you want to extend him anyway. So I think the only surefire guys you definitely need to and want to extend will be Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. Then you have a guy like a Quincy Williams. You have some offensive line pieces you might want to do that too. But those are future discussions for a future time where the cap situation is hopefully going to be better. If you bring back Rodgers this year, you have a worse chance of keeping those guys because you have a lot more dead cap on the books in 2026 and 2027 when you have to make those deals.
But what I would say to you guys is this. We have 4/5 of a really good offensive line this year.
Yes.
Correct.
That's going to be much better, okay? The reason why Minnesota won as many games as they did with Sam Darnold, 90% of it was the fact that they had a great offensive line.
That is not true. Kevin O'Connell was one of the best.
He got his butt kicked when he got rushed. We know Sam Darnold's weakness. When he's rushed, he panics and he throws the ball away and has poor. He was protected, Connor. I watched games this year with Minnesota. He sat back there like Tom Brady did 10 years ago. He had a lot of time to pass, Connor. When he got pressured, he does not do well under pressure.
The
Vikings were ranked 18th in pass blocking grade this season.
I was just looking at the same thing, Connor. That's fine.
They're good. They pass blocked for him. I saw a lot of games.
A lot of it was the scheme. Their offensive line wasn't terrible. It had a really bad finish to the season. The last couple of weeks was really rough. It wasn't great for most of the year. It was fine. It was passable. It was solid. Like, they have a couple of good pieces there. Brian O'Neill's really good. Christian Darrisaw, like, they have some good pieces, but it wasn't elite by any means. I mean, if you want to point to a quarterback being assisted by offensive line, I mean, Detroit is probably the best example where, like, Jared Goff, I think Jared Goff is good, but that offensive line does him a lot of favors.
And his weapons too.
And his weapons.
Absolutely. I felt Minnesota gave him a lot of time. And the same thing as I said, when you give a quarterback time and you have a great offensive line, you could do a lot of damage. And that's from both a running perspective and a passing perspective. So all I could tell you is we have a much better offensive line than we had, number one. Braylon and Brees. Brees was not healthy this year, and he wasn't motivated. You bring Devontae Adams back. Let me tell you something. I haven't seen a receiver like Devontae Adams for us in a very, very long time. He's
really good.
I love Garrett Wilson. He's not as good as Devontae Adams is, period. He's just not, okay? And the bottom line is those two together with a nice tight end, bring on a nice tight end free agency, bring in another offensive lineman, add a little bit of depth, our offense is done. Then we can focus on the defensive line, picking up a few guys, and we have a roster we can make a run with.
I have a really interesting stat for you really quick, and this is courtesy of Jets.
And wait, one last thing, guys.
Okay.
When Aaron Rodgers was hurt, here was another big problem. When you have a coach that's a leader, okay? If Aaron sat down after the Denver game when he clearly was hurt, guys, he could have came back healthy earlier in the season and made a big difference. It could have made a difference. He played injured. All right.
I agree. You probably should have sat. I'm with you on that. I don't think
he was the one who demanded to play, though. Like, you have a coach.
That doesn't matter, Connor. If you have a coach like Vrabel or a guy that's a leader, they're going to say, hey, go sit down. We're going to bring Tyrod in. He didn't have the confidence in the coaching staff, and they didn't have the goonads to tell him to sit down.
Oh, I have a really interesting stat, really quick.
And now, Connor, by the way, now that he knows he's not Superman, because he tries to be Superman, okay? Let's be realistic. He's not what he was, okay? He doesn't have the 99-mile-an-hour fastball anymore. But guess what, Connor? He still could change his game, be more of a game manager. And in a big spot, I still like him over 80% of the quarterbacks in a big position to win a game if he's reasonably healthy.
Okay.
Justin, here we go.
Two things on that. One, the last part, Aaron Rodgers had like 6 or 7 opportunities to win the Jets games late in the game.
1 and 6, 1 and 5.
It was like 1 and 5 in those opportunities. That's obviously this context. Mike Williams fell down.
But he had the lead in 7 of them also.
I'm not putting.
He had the lead in 7 of them, and we lost. We only won 2 of them.
Second thing, this is the stat I was trying to bring up earlier. This is courtesy of Jets Sector's own Michael Nania. Aaron Rodgers had the second lowest pressure rate in the NFL this year, but he had the 31st ranked EPA per dropback from clean pockets. That means the Jets were consistently providing clean pockets for Aaron Rodgers more than almost any offensive line in the NFL, and he failed at taking advantage of those clean pockets more than almost any quarterback in the league.
Okay.
Second most interceptions from a clean pocket as well with 9. He struggled in a clean pocket last year. So it's not necessarily like, oh, just keep him upright, he's going to be good. Like, sure, when he was healthy, playing against bad defenses in good weather, he looked really good. That's not.
Justin, here's what you're missing, though. Here's what you're missing, okay?
What?
The first 3 games, again, he came off an Achilles injury.
He's only going to get worse. He's turning 42 years old next December.
Connor,
one more injury, his career is over.
Justin, did he get the crap kicked out of him in the first 3 games? Did he get the
crap kicked out of him? The Denver game.
Did he get bent over backwards in that day in the game in Minnesota?
The Denver game was a rough.
Was there great pass protection in those games?
Not the Denver game, absolutely not.
How about
quarterbacks? He's not able to take any more of those hits. That's the problem.
It got better as the year went on, especially as they
and he got better when he got over the injury. He started getting further away from the Achilles. He got better
against bad defense and good weather.
Are you kidding me?
Thank you.
Look again.
You guys think he stinks?
I know. I said before. I think Aaron Rodgers is a fine starting quarterback, and again, on performance only, is the best quarterback option for the Jets to compete in 2025. I don't think there's a quarterback that you put on that roster right now that is better, that feasible. Obviously, we're not going to say anybody quarterback in the NFL that they can realistically land that is a better quarterback, if healthy, than Aaron Rodgers. Unfortunately, the conversation goes beyond that, and I don't think they have a legitimate chance to compete with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback in 2025, which is why it's better to take the dead cap hit now as opposed to
Connor, do you know there's going to be at least 3 teams, at least, that are going to want Aaron Rodgers with Devontae
on a minimum contract? Sure.
Okay, yeah. Veteran minimum, cool. Let him be
veteran. He's not going to get to veteran minimum, Connor. Come on.
Yeah, that's what Russell Wilson said.
Thank you. Why would – here's the thing. This is what needs to happen for me to consider bringing Aaron Rodgers back. He takes a $20 million pay cut. I consider it. And also, tell me right now, Neil, what realistic head coach and new GM candidate, new regime is going to say, hey, I want 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers back next season? Who is going to say that? Nobody. That's just
what are you talking about? Vrabel would have had him as his quarterback. He already said it, Connor.
Well, that's Mike Vrabel. That's Mike Vrabel. He's with the Patriots right now.
Here's the
no,
issue.
But he said he would take Aaron Rodgers.
Okay,
and
good for him.
You don't think? Wait a minute. You think if Mike McCarthy was the coach, he wouldn't take Rodgers?
Mike McCarthy hasn't even been interviewed in the first round of interviews.
Again, you're talking the only ones that don't want him are going to be guys that are looking to build for the long term. But you're making an assumption.
Every head coach candidate is.
You're making an assumption that they're not going to want him back. That's an assumption.
We don't know for sure, but the reason
we don't know, Connor.
We don't
know that. I'm telling you, you don't know what kind of hit he's going to take, and you don't know what a coach is thinking. If a coach wants to win now, he keeps Devontae and Aaron Rodgers, beefs up the team, and tries to make a run.
Couple things.
They're trying to lose and rebuild.
They're not trying to lose, but the thing is, if you are a general manager taking over this team, right? If you are going to look at this, because they're going to do the same thing that we're doing. They're going to evaluate the roster and say, hey, can we compete with Aaron Rodgers in 2025? I don't think most general managers are going to sell their job potentially on competing in 2025 at the risk of killing their financial situation in 2026 and 2027. That's really what it comes down to. If you're a GM and you're coming in, if you by year 3, you're hoping to field a competitive roster. Most GMs don't get 6 years like Joe Douglas did. If by year 3, you're still not good enough, there's going to be concerns about your job. And if you bring in Aaron Rodgers immediately, that really affects your potential to build a competitor by 2027, 2026, 2027. And the other thing on that is with the restructure and the whole pay cut thing, some of it's not even possible because there's the reason there's such a big difference in cap hit between
the bonuses. Yeah,
is the option bonus. If he's on the roster week 1 of 2025, Aaron Rodgers receives a $35 million option bonus in his contract. That gets delayed because of void years. And that's why if they wait until after next year to cut him, because they wouldn't be cutting him, that's when his contract expires, even though he has the void years. That's why if they wait until then, the cap hit is so much higher. He can't get rid of that.
You guys act like the cap hit is so astronomical. Do you understand?
It is 63 million.
No. It's not going to be 63 million.
Yes,
He's going to restructure the deal.
And the money's just going to get pushed back. The money is just
The $63 million is going to happen. Either it'll be split all in 2026, or it'll be split between 2026 and 2027.
That's
so it's $32 million. That's not the end of the world. $32 million. You guys act
for
like
someone whose ceiling is in a top 15 quarterback. Yes, it is.
Yeah, and the issue is again,
it's not that big.
And the issue is you're taking that cap.
What's the cap hit the Giants are taking to get rid of Daniel Jones? They're taking a cap hit.
Well, yeah, look where they are right now. They're not competing.
But they took a cap hit. That's the
so
point
they're
I'm
not
making,
a
Connor.
good
Is
team.
the
The
cap
goal
hit is
is
not
to be a
that
good
big.
team. The goal is not to be the Giants. There are teams who have done it before, but they're not in a good spot right now. The goal is not to do it and, say you did it like the Giants.
Right.
Giants are going nowhere next season. You want to compete. That is the goal.
Yeah. Especially
we're not competing next year with this quarterback duo you just put up.
They're not competing next year regardless of the quarterback. They're not going to compete.
We're not going to have Devontae Adams. We're not going to have a quarterback. How many games are we going to win, Connor? 6?
How many games are they going to win with Aaron Rodgers?
Okay, again, like I said.
Wait. Hang on a second. Connor, relax a second. Connor, if the Jets maintain Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, do what I said, pick up a couple good free agents, get a good coach, their over-under record will at least be 9 games. If we don't have Aaron Rodgers and we have the 2 quarterbacks you suggested, no Devontae Adams, no wide receivers, we're going to be a 5 in Vegas over-under. That's all I'm saying. We'd rather be a 9 than a 5. And that's what we'll be if we don't have
First, on the cap hit, it wouldn't be split evenly. It would be 42 million.
I don't care about the cap hit. I care about next year, not 2026, not 2027, because we could suck at 26, we could suck at 27. It doesn't matter.
But that's not what the GM's going to care about. The GM cares about the future.
GM is going to care about winning.
Right, winning in the future.
Thank you.
Winning.
You think you want to hire an accountant?
The GM.
That's what we had with Joe Douglas. He was an accountant, worried about next year and the year after. And where is he now? He doesn't have a goddamn job.
Right. So
because he didn't want to go for the big free agent and win all. He wanted to get Tyron Smith for a $9 million deal or an $8 million deal.
It was a great deal at the time. It was an incredible deal at the time.
The GM is going to care.
It wasn't incredible.
Listen.
Connor, he stunk. What do you mean it was incredible?
He was a Pro Bowler when he was healthy.
Hello, he was healthy this year. He stunk.
Okay, he hadn't shown that at all in his career. That's a fluke season.
Listen.
What do you mean it's a fluke season? He's not going to play football anymore. He's done.
He hadn't shown that at all his whole career. Whenever he was healthy, he was a Pro Bowler.
He wasn't, but Dallas got rid of him, and he only got $9 million, Connor, because every other team realized that's all he was worth. Nobody else was after him.
Right, go back to Rodgers. Go back to
the new GM.
Nobody was after him but us.
The new GM coming in is going to care about building sustained success. That's what every single new GM wants. Bringing in Aaron or keeping Aaron Rodgers, sure, you have your best chance at maybe competing in 2025. That's true. I 100% agree with that. I concede that point 100%. I'm not arguing that. But it hurts your chances at succeeding in 2026, 2027, 2028, and beyond. And by that point, that new GM might have already lost their job because they didn't build a sustained winner because of
all I will tell you, guys, let me just say this. We'll end it here. If we have, do not be surprised. If we're smart, we will have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams in this team this year. If we are, and I will tell you this, if Aaron Rodgers is on the 49ers or the Pittsburgh Steelers or one of the other teams that's going to want a quarterback and will take him, I will bet you that he will be in the playoffs next year while we're dancing around talking about Justin Fields and who's going to be our next quarterback. So, guys, that's what I'll say. That's my feeling. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not in the minority, Connor. Okay? Joe Beningo, who wants Aaron Rodgers back. There's many, many guys that have been watching this team a lot longer than you guys that want Aaron Rodgers back. Don't be
good for them. Good for them.
And don't be so sure any coach that comes in here is not going to want him back. My bet is he's going to be back.
Okay. Neil,
with the Jets.
Neil, I appreciate the call. I think that was...
we had a great discourse, guys. It's great. Great. I'm glad to see what you guys are doing.
Of course.
But I have one suggestion. Stay away from the analytics. Analytics are full of crap.
Okay.
Enough said, guys.
All right.
Have a good night.
Enjoy your
Neil-
shirt, my friend.
Neil,
The eye test says it all, guys. I've seen the eye test. That's
See,
what I look at.
Neil, I appreciate the call. I think that might be let's see. I think that's the longest call in show history. What was that? We're looking at 31 minutes long there, Justin.
We
that was
double the length of the whole show.
that
I'm
was
honored that I was
tiring.
here for it.
Yeah. Anyways, I know we're so over time. I'm assuming you have to run right now, right? We go a little over.
Yeah, I mean, what, you got like one more call or something?
We have a few on hold. So do you
I'll-
have time
I'll
for one more?
I'll take one more. Hopefully, it's not 30 minutes, but I'll take one
All
more.
right, we'll go with someone who's on Neil's train since we
Sure.
since we're on that discussion. Nick Lane, June Charles. I'll get to all you guys after we let Justin go because we went way over us. I see all your super chats. We're gonna get to those in a second. But while we're on the topic of of Aaron Rodgers, fellow Jets content creator, talking Jets with Tigo, joins us. Tigo,
What's up?
how you doing?
Oh, buddy.
Can't complain. Except for like the I can't even begin to wrap my head around the idea of I get it. I understand where you guys are coming from. I just think it's objectively wrong.
Okay.
And like I was in the back and I was just sitting there. I was just like just screaming at my monitor because it's just like some of the things that you guys were saying is just like it's just not true. Like okay.
Like what? Yeah, go.
The Dak Prescott thing, right? You said that Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. None of the stats prove that. Adjusted completion percentage, Aaron Rodgers was a more accurate quarterback this year than Dak Prescott. Completion percentage, he was a better quarterback than Dak Prescott this year. Passing this year, his completion percentage was absolutely totally fine. This idea that the Jets can't be competitive next year with an entirely new coaching staff, I also think is false. If the only thing we changed about this year was we had 2024 Greg the Leg. If that was the only change we had this year, we're what, an 9-win team? How many games did we lose straight up on the kicker? Just straight up because of the kicker.
3, 4.
Yeah,
Okay, so now we're a 5-win team plus 3. Now we're an 8-win team. And let's not act like going down and losing multiple games doesn't take a hit on morale. And we were easily the worst coached team in the NFL last year. Easily.
Yeah, for sure.
Easily the worst coached team in the NFL that last year. I got a DM from someone who's close to the building that said that the biggest thing change that we saw was when the biggest reason Salah got fired was not because Woody was like, oh, we need a change. The real reason that Salah got fired was because Salah was dictating the offense to play really, really, really conservatively. That's why when Salah left and we obviously changed to what's-his-face, Downing, the offense started improving. But because Salah
For
left,
one
the
game.
offense fell apart. Right? No, the numbers say that the offense was
It was the
more than
Bills
adequate.
game, and it was the Bills game, and then it kind of, it started to sink.
But again, even with all of that taking into consideration, the best I think the biggest thing is that if any head coach coming to the New York Jets, almost all of them are going to want Aaron Rodgers back, including the GM, almost all of them. Because the
How do you
reality
know
is
that? How do you know that?
Because there is no other option at quarterback. Either you bring Aaron Rodgers back, or you're committing that 2025, this upcoming season, we're going to be a 3-win team.
That's cool if you save the cat. I honestly, I can't even agree on that 1,000%. There's
what
so
quarterback
much
is coming in and going to get this team?
Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor.
Absolutely not. Just dude, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the first opportunity they had to get off of Justin Fields, they did it.
And
Russell Wilson was not a good quarterback this year.
They were 4-2 with him.
Okay, they went 10 wins with Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson played like dog crap all year. He didn't play well. This is why I have friends of mine who are Steelers fans begging us to hire Arthur Smith as their head coach.
Arthur Smith has nothing to do with Justin Fields. You give Justin
What do you
Fields...
mean? He's the offensive coordinator. He's calling the plays. And the one guy who's super, let's act. I'm not even going to go down that pathway because I don't even want to go down there. The one guy who would say, I'm going to give him a chance, I'm going to make Justin Fields the guy, he has a real shot because he has nothing invested in Russell Wilson. The first opportunity he was given, the very first time that Russell Wilson said, hey, I'm kind of healthy, he took Justin Fields out.
And how did
They were
work
winning
out?
games because of their defense, not because of Justin Fields. Go look at those games. Go look at those stat lines. It wasn't good. He wasn't doing anything. Justin Fields isn't good. Justin Fields is more athletic Zach Wilson.
I mean,
That's what he is.
I mean, I disagree. First, the Dak thing. I would go jumping back to the Dak thing because I'm a Dak Prescott fan. So I don't stand for any Dak Prescott disrespect. I don't think Dak Prescott was very good this year. Granted, 8-game sample size. He finished second in MVP voting last year and was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in 2023. He has been one of the better quarterbacks in the league for a while now. I think he's undisputably, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback, probably back in the top 10, 8 to 10 tier is probably where I'd put him. I think it's a very good tier for him. He's not in the top tier. He doesn't have the same elite traits that a lot of the other guys do.
Yep.
He is incredibly smart, one of the best decision makers in the league, incredibly accurate, runs a really good offense. Like, very good quarterback, extremely good quarterback. I don't think there's a single NFL decision maker in the league that would tell you that they think Aaron Rodgers in the year 2025 is better than Dak Prescott. So I'll say that, but I agree with you. Dak was not good this year. This 8-game sample size, but he was not good. So that's for starters. Second, I mean, I don't think the Jets are making the playoffs if they bring in a Justin Fields or if they run it back with Tyler Taylor. But I don't think that, again, like I said, like I was talking with Neil, I don't think they are a legitimate contender with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback anyway. And if you're not going to be a legitimate contender, if you think that, then that's fine.
But why not? Let me ask this question. Okay. You keep saying that, but then you don't point to anything in specific.
Okay,
and I don't want to be the emotional guy. I got worked up totally because I hate the Justin Fields rhetoric.
That's okay.
It gets me so fired up. I'm sorry. But why is it that, just like Connor mentioned, this is your take, Connor, and I agree with you, and I love that you said this. What happens when we get Ted McMillan at 7? And now you bring Devontae Adams back, and you've got Aaron Rodgers, and this O-line, which was, just like you mentioned, Justin, way above average at protecting Aaron Rodgers, and let's just pretend like we aren't the worst coached team in the NFL. Why is it that we can't get 9 and 10 wins and go on a run? So I'm not saying we're going to win the Super Bowl. I don't think that's the standard. But why didn't we? If you make it to the playoff, there's a chance. We've seen crazier things.
I think they can absolutely make the playoffs next year with Aaron Rodgers at the quarterback. I'm not saying, in fact, I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say if they brought back Rodgers, I'd put it at like a 50% or higher chance. I don't think I would because it's a tough conference and there's a lot of really good quarterbacks, but I think they'd have a chance for sure. The issue to me is that the chance of them legitimately competing, winning 10 plus games and having a real shot at the Super Bowl is not very high. And it's not high enough for me to justify the cap hits and the financial ramifications for 2026 and 2027.
But he's already said he's willing to give money back.
As for why,
how much?
Okay, it's $37 million that is guaranteed to come in. If he gives back 30 of that, his cap hit goes down. And are we acting like the cap hit isn't going to go up? It does that every year. It goes up.
Justin explained, you're still going to have to pay it. And at this point, I'd rather move on from him today. Move on from him today. Eat $49 million next season and clean the slate for the future.
But it won't be 49 next year.
This year.
It will. If you cut him pre-June 1, you owe him $49 million next year. If you cut him post-June 1, you owe him $14 million next year and $35 million in 2026.
Correct. Yeah, and that's I look again. My opinion on this is.
But now you're
Rodgers,
totally right.
Go
ahead.
You're good. You're good. If Aaron Rodgers was willing to take a large pay cut and legitimately took a massive pay cut, I think the conversation is different. The issue is there's only so much he can even do, and I don't think he's going to take. He's already taken such a big pay cut, and if we're reading the tea leaves, I know he said that he's willing to take a pay cut. I don't think he'd be willing to take a big enough pay cut to justify keeping him around. Again, that option bonus, to my knowledge, I'm not a cap expert. To my knowledge, that option bonus cannot be waived. So that is a guaranteed $35 million.
But it's not waived. You can rewrite the contract. All of the guaranteed money can come back in.
I'm not sure.
You're just adjusting.
The only way you could basically essentially move on is if you cut him and just re-sign him to a completely new contract. That's one of the only ways you could work it out to kind of get that option bonus away.
Look, I
don't think that's true.
We can't deal with I can't deal with hypotheticals because if you said, okay, hypothetically he takes this big of a pay cut and this is exactly how it affects the cap situation, yeah, maybe my opinion would change. I don't know. I'd have to look at the exact numbers of it. But all I know is right now, given the financial situation that we know, that I can't justify bringing him back for another year with the outside chance of competing at the risk of hurting your financial future. And that's also why I don't think
it's hurting your financial future.
Yes, it is.
No. Because, Connor, how much are quarterbacks getting paid nowadays? A top-end quarterback, how much are they getting paid right now?
Oh, a lot of money.
A lot of money. For
Yeah,
sure.
$40 to $50 million a year, right?
Sure. But
totally.
you need that guy to be on your roster,
in
not to be
2026. Let me finish. In
Yeah.
2026, who's going to be the quarterback of the New York Jets? Regardless of if Rodgers comes back next year or anything like that.
We don't know.
No. We don't know. We don't know a name. 2026. Correct. We don't know. We don't know a name.
But it won't be Aaron Rodgers. I can certainly guarantee.
Totally. I don't want Rodgers back for 2026. My advocation is back for 2025. Sure. We know for a fact, we can say this almost with a guarantee. I'll say 75-25 that the quarterback starting for the New York Jets is either going to be a rookie or someone who sat for a year. So their cap hit is going to be absolutely minimal. And I think the other thing that you guys aren't taking into consideration here is the ramifications on this team long-term beyond just the cap. Because be real, if you bring in Justin Fields, which I might have to stop watching for a year if we're bringing Justin Fields, honestly.
Who would you prefer, Tigo? Just one quick before we get right back to it. Justin Fields or Sam Ehlinger?
Oh.
I would rather have a Make-A-Wish kid at quarterback for 17 weeks than Justin Fields. We might get more.
So Sam Ehlinger.
I would give me
Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle.
Connor, do you want to go be quarterback? It'd be the same amount of effectiveness. I'd let you get a run at it, man.
Yeah,
Matt O'Leary is like 6'5".
I'm not even
over that O-line.
I'm not even the biggest Justin Fields fan, but now I got to defend him. That's crazy.
I would take Justin Fields over
Fields is a top 32
throwing motion is atrocious. He can't read the field. He's horrible under pressure. All of the underlying stats point to a quarterback that doesn't know how to win a football game. The only thing that he provides is athleticism. That's it.
And an insane arm talent. Like
it's not an insane arm talent. He has a really good arm. He has good arm strength. Great.
With the right coach, I think he can be an okay quarterback in this
right
league.
Now, I think is a top 32 quarterback in the NFL.
I agree.
I disagree.
I don't think he's a top 20, top 25.
I don't think he's a top 32 quarterback.
I'd say he's probably 27, 29.
Yeah, and that's fine.
I think he's 30, 31, 32. Those guys that shouldn't be starting.
Okay, so you just said he's top
No. Yeah. But that's because like Zach Wilson was a top 32 quarterback because he started on the New York Jets.
No, I think he was top 40.
No, he wasn't. Even just because you're starting doesn't mean you're top 32. Zach Wilson.
Then if that's the standard, I agree. Then no, he is not a top 32 quarterback in the NFL. He's just not.
Do you think who do you think's better, Cooper Rush or Justin Fields?
I'd take Cooper Rush.
That's crazy to me. See, that's great.
Josh Dobbs or
Josh
Dobbs.
Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs.
I would take Dobbs. We've seen Dobbs work in the NFL, like with winning with his arm.
Well, I mean, like the first 5 games of the season, then catch on to him.
Yeah. We've seen Justin Fields have good games in the NFL too.
Yeah, Fields went 4-2.
Yeah, behind a perfect offensive line, throwing to wide open receivers and a defense that couldn't cause any pressure. Under pressure, he's one of the worst. Dude, he's almost as bad as Zach Wilson.
Clearly, we're not going to agree on Fields, but that's okay. That's fine.
No, yeah. No. Going back to the topic at hand, right? Which is, we don't bring Rodgers back. We're now running a year of Tyrod Taylor and why do I forget the Florida State kid? What's
Jordan
his name?
Travis.
Jordan Travis. Oh God, that hope and dream alive for some reason.
That's not happening. Let's just be clear.
No, yeah.
He might not take a snap in the NFL. Let's just get that out of every fan's head.
Thank you. Beautiful. Tyrod Taylor's not a good enough quarterback to win you any games, and I don't think that would be really like
he
very
took a
many
Giants
games.
team that was a pretty barren roster, led them to basically a 500 record in 2023 over his starts.
He's fine. He's a good backup. The other issue, obviously, is injuries with him. Just like
of course, that's the thing.
Would stay healthy. I don't know.
You play Tyrod, you're going to get 6 games out of him, and then Jordan Travis comes on.
No, Jackson Dart. You signed just. I think
you're not, dude. You're Jackson Dart isn't ready to start in the NFL.
So you bring.
They're still not winning. We're gonna run into a Hackenberg situation if you do this again.
I think
we're literally. If you're drafting a second-round quarterback, if you're bringing up the names Milroe and Dart, first of all, there's conversation that Dart is gonna go in the top 10, which is wild.
I think he'll go in the second or third round. I think
I agree.
I missed those conversations.
Yeah,
dude. I saw it. Justin, I will try to find it. I will send it to Connor for him to send it to you. Like there are reports that the NFL front offices like Jackson Dart enough that he's going to go in the top 10, that they liked him more than teams liked Bo Nix last year.
I mean, he played for Ole Miss. Let's be real here.
I mean,
thank you.
Quarterback class is bad. It's not
this
good,
quarterback class is atrocious.
Maybe he goes round 1 because of that.
Dude, I think it, but like there are conversations of like Milroe going in the first round. We're getting off track. That's besides the point.
Yeah,
There isn't a quarterback answer in this draft.
probably
We're not going to get Cam Ward, and I don't really like any of the other quarterbacks in this draft class for the New York Jets, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
So you're looking at a quarterback in 2026, and you're looking at Tyrod Taylor, who's not going to stay very healthy, and then you're looking at what's his name,
Travis.
Jordan Travis, and literally people throwing out Jameis Winston and Justin Fields.
Okay,
and
Winston's not Winston. We can't have Winston.
kill me now on any of these other quarterbacks. None of it is going to happen, right? So 2025 is almost guaranteed, if you move on from Rodgers, to be a really, really down year. Production on everybody's side. It's also going to be a down year, like emotionally for everybody. Now you're talking about when people coming up to the end of their contracts. Is Garrett going to want to stay around after 4 years of 2 to 3 quarterbacks a year?
Justin Fields was his college quarterback. He loves
Garrett
Justin
Wilson,
Fields.
By all accounts,
College isn't the same thing.
What's been
Tebow
reported-
won a national championship.
What's been reported is that Garrett Wilson does not want Aaron Rodgers back. That's the indication that we've gotten, and that I'm sure he'd be much more in favor of Justin Fields because he's an Ohio State guy because they played together.
Totally.
Thank you. That's
Totally.
what I just said.
And then,
yeah.
and then,
You signed
and then
Fields.
3 weeks in, when Justin Fields can't hit the ocean out of a canoe in the middle of a hurricane, can't hit a drop of water, and then he's mad at his guy again because, oh, it's the NFL. Everybody stepped up. Why haven't you? You went to the NFL before I did.
But again, if you keep again, I will continue to come back to the finances because it is the most important thing in this conversation to me is the financial future of the Jets. If they bring back Aaron Rodgers, you are now, again, barring a significant pay cut that we don't know, that's a hypothetical, you are now going to take on significant dead cap in 2026 and 2027, and it'll be much harder to keep those guys around, even if they want to be here. That's not a good situation. And you bring up a good point that in 2026, maybe they do have a rookie quarterback, and they're, regardless of who is their quarterback, it's probably not going to be a guy making $50 million. I think we all agree on that. So yeah, maybe you can afford to take a bit of a dead cap here. I think that's a fair conversation, but I still don't think it's worth it for the outside chance of
35
maybe
and 21. 35 and 21, I think, is a much, much better situation than losing. How much should we take this year if he's gone? 63?
It'd be 35 and 21. No, it'd be 42 and 20 and 21 because the 63 million in dead cap. The 30 that would be if they post June 1st this year. If they post June 1st after 2025, then it's 21 million in 2026 and then 42 million in 2027.
And what is it this year?
This year's, well, I mean, if they don't cut him, it's 23 million.
No. If we cut him this year,
40 and up front,
it's 49
million up front, completely just right now, and you don't have to worry about future dead
and then
cap.
we don't have to worry about anything else.
They also have other future dead cap hits because Joe Douglas did a lot of restructuring.
Jay Mosley and Morgan Moses and Elijah Vera Tucker, Tyron Smith. Look, we got a ton of dead cap hit coming on, but spreading it out is just objectively the right answer, especially when you take into consideration that the cap is going to progressively go up. Keeping this team competitive is better for the moral. He doesn't want to he doesn't want Aaron Rodgers to come back. Totally fine. I get it, right? But he's also not going to want to stay with the New York Jets if we go back to get 4 wins and we're still not in the playoffs. And now he's going to demand a trade, and now he has some leverage because he's on the final year of his deal.
You still have a franchise tag.
Totally.
And I also think if they move on from Rodgers, they're not like guaranteed to win 4 games. Like I think they can absolutely because there's so many different routes they can go to quarterback. We haven't even mentioned like a Derek Carr. I think that makes a ton of sense if he sneaks free from New Orleans. You at least have a baseline level starter who is a fine player.
Where's that money going to come from?
12 games with Derek Carr. What?
Where's that money going to come from? If we cut Aaron Rodgers, we're going to have not a full roster, and we're going to have under $5 million in cap. So now the cap ramifications that you're not taking into consideration is we're going to have to restructure Quinnen. We're going to have to restructure. That's still not including the fact that we still have to cut Alan Lazard.
It depends on the contract situation. It depends on his market. Depends on the contract situation. I also wouldn't be opposed. And again, this is kind of not this is. I've said this take on the Jet Press podcast, and people have not liked it. I would not be opposed to Kirk Cousins on a minimum contract. Cousins was not good this year. And I don't think the Jets are winning a lot of games with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback in 2025.
Going to San Francisco.
He's at least a base level starter where, again, he's going to be another year removed from the Achilles. I don't think he's completely washed. The mobility was just not there for a lot of last year. I wouldn't hate it if he was the quarterback and you at least have, and you obviously, you bring in Cousins, maybe you draft a guy in day 2. My preference, as Connor's mentioned before, is still Justin Fields. I know depending on your opinion on it, you disagree. But I see Fields as a similar signing to what the Bucks did with Baker, or what the Panthers or Vikings have done with
Baker
Darnold.
had way more upside than Justin.
I disagree.
I think Justin has the
upsides-
intangibles with a solid coach to be a top 15 quarterback.
I think he could be a really good quarterback in this league, Justin Fields. The issues is a lot of the mistakes, a lot of the issues that he had at Ohio State are still prevalent. As you mentioned, holds on to the ball forever. His accuracy is not particularly great. His pocket presence is not good. A lot of those mistakes that he had, a lot of those weaknesses that he had at Ohio State are still here, but at least it's an upside swing as opposed to bringing in like a Jacoby Brissett or a Jameis Winston.
Is it though? This is 5 years into his career and he hasn't
More
fixed any
upside
of this stuff.
It's more upside than the other guys for sure. You could have said the same thing about Darnold. Darnold is still making those same mistakes this year, but he's
and Kevin O'Connell was one of the best coaches in the NFL. I was one of the very few people that was arguing that Sam is absolutely benefiting from being in a perfectly good system. Sam's going to get paid $35 million this offseason and fall apart.
Possibly.
Kevin O'Connell just made Sam Darnold $60 million.
Possibly. I don't
Potentially.
I don't think that's the worst take ever.
He's going to get what, like a 3-year, $100-ish million deal. So it's like 33.5, 34 per.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's also the talk that Minnesota could just tag him after what they saw in the playoff game. I could see them going like, "Hey, show us that again." I could see them wanting
a lot of money for them to do that. That's the issue with it. I agree with you on Darnold. I think he's grown in that system, and I think he has taken strides. But as we've seen the last couple of weeks, the same issues that he still has are there. I mean, it's the pocket presence with him. It's the compounding mistakes and snowballing, which he did with the Jets a lot, and he still does that in Minnesota. It's when he's under pressure, he still really, really struggles to get the ball out, and he makes stupid mistakes. Like, that version of Darnold is still there. I think it became less prevalent this year because, I mean, first of all, a lot of Darnold situations that when he found himself under pressure this year, he would chuck up a 50-50 ball to Justin Jefferson. And when he turned it up to Jefferson, that's 80-20. That's, it's not a 50-50 ball. So I think he benefited from that, benefited from Kevin O'Connell for sure. We lost track of where we're going with this, but I think Fields is a similar upside player to that, where look, if you get him in the right system,
they're not never shown that ability though.
Listen, they're not going to do it.
He hasn't been in the right system though.
They're not going to do it, but I would love it if they had brought in like a Todd Monken, pair Monken with Justin Fields.
Or Cliff Kingsbury.
Or Kingsbury, two guys who don't seem to be interested in the Jets job. I would have loved that, and I think that would have been a great system.
Yeah, I agree, Justin. I know you got to run, so I'll just say this: Kingsbury, that's perfect. Kingsbury and Brian Johnson. Kingsbury head coach, Brian Johnson offensive coordinator with Justin Fields. I thought would be incredible because both Kingsbury with Daniels and Kyler at the NFL level, Brian Johnson with Jalen Hurts at the NFL level. All three of those guys have similar skill sets to Fields. Anyways, Justin, Tigo, first off, I appreciate you calling in. Great stuff.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah.
Peace. Anyways, great stuff. Follow Tigo, Talking Jets with Tigo, YouTube, Twitter. Anyways, Justin, I know you got to run. We literally went over an hour as planned. I'm so happy that you were able to stay on. Great Jets discussion. As always, I'm going to stay on, take the rest of your calls, answer the rest of your questions. You guys have done great stuff today, so I appreciate all the support. Appreciate all tuning in. 130 of you watching, so I appreciate all your support. Justin, thank you so much for joining me. First time on the show, so the question I asked every single guest I have on here for the first time is, you've traveled the world. So how many 20-something countries you've been to?
Yeah, I forgot the exact number. That is, for people, that is like all these flags.
Yeah.
This is like a total humble brag for me saying that. I lived in Germany for a few years, so it was very easy to travel when you're there. It's cheap and easy. So I'm very lucky that I got to do that.
Yeah, so you've met a ton of people throughout your ventures. It could be a family member. It could be someone famous, but 4 dinner guests. Oh. Anyone in the world, dead or alive. You don't have to say where you're going to take them, but who are the 4 people you want to take out to dinner and pick your mind?
All right. I mean, I immediately go to like celebrities and stuff, like people that I haven't met. I don't know if I really sat down and thought of this, I probably have like different answers, but first thought went to J. Cole, who you're
a J. Cole guy. I'm
a big music guy in general. I do love J. Cole. I think he is my favorite rapper, favorite artist, probably. There's a few up there too. I don't only listen to rap, I listen to plenty of music, but I do.
Nice.
I think J. Cole would be a very interesting person to talk to. I like his
for sure.
A lot of things. Let's go complete opposite end of the music spectrum. Give me Dua Lipa.
Oh wow!
for reasons, I'd love to go to dinner with Dua. If you're watching, if you're a Jets fan and you're tuning into to Connor's show, let me know. It's 2 right there. We'll throw in a sports one here. I'm a big Knicks guy. You know what? I'll finish it off with 2 Knicks. I'm a big Knicks guy as well. Give me Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. I think they would bring some brevity to the dinner. It would add a lot of humor. And I just think that's, I mean, I don't know how that foursome of people would
I think Duo would be the odd one out there.
Duo would definitely be the odd one out, but Duo would be there for me, and I'd be happy. I think the other three can maybe get along. I know J. Cole's a big basketball guy, so they can talk ball. I'll be chatting up Dua Lipa, and we'll be going from there. I think that's what I do.
Justin, means the world. Appreciate you hopping on. Plug the Jet Press podcast. You guys have been growing over there on YouTube. Just past 1,000 followers. I mean, you've interviewed so many: Demario Davis, JBC, Xavier Newman, CJ Mosley, Sauce Gardner, Joe Klecko. Just to rattle off a few there. Plug your Twitter, plug the podcast, plug everything you have. And you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, for plugging, you can check me out. My Twitter is at Justin T. Fried. That's Fried. I know it looks like fried. Everyone always will say that. I get it all the time. Don't worry. And yeah, check out our stuff on the Jet Press. We do some pretty cool articles there every day. It's a part of the Fan-Sided Network. We got Jet Press YouTube channel, where, as Connor mentioned, we've done some interviews. We did one recently. We actually had one go up on Wednesday with Thomas Morstead. He did his rounds of the the Jets media crews. Morstead is a great dude. Always fun.
I had him on twice. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. And Sauce Gardner, Demario Davis. We did one recently, and probably some more coming up. Every draft season, I try and reach out to some prospects too. So last year, I forget who we had on. We did have JBC, Jargonade Commerce, on before the Jets drafted him.
I forgot there were. I know there were definitely a few. Kipper, you had Kipper on.
Yeah,
was one of them. I remember.
On in the past, I've done I got Peyton Turner on one year, which was hype because he went first round, and that was a stunner. No one expected that. But yeah, and then we do live streams every Wednesday. I saw June in chat wanted to talk all with me. Listen, Wednesday, actually, I might not be here this Wednesday. We will have a podcast on Wednesday. I might not be here, but tune in every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We stream on this YouTube channel. Me and my buddy Mike Luciano, who is also part of the site. And yeah, final thoughts. I don't know, man. Let's hope that hopefully next week at this time we're talking about the GM the Jets have hired and not talking about another 30 candidates they've interviewed or whatever.
Justin, great stuff. Chat loved you. We're definitely going to get you on back soon. Hopefully next time we chat, there's a GM and a head coach in place. My goal, Justin, is I want a GM in here before the Senior Bowl. That's what I want when these events start to heat up. Justin, appreciate it. Have a great night.
Of course, man. Sam to you. Appreciate you having me on. See you, chat.
Of course. Justin Fried joining us. Follow him. He plugged all of his work, some great stuff over at the Jet Press podcast, senior managing editor over there. So does some great work on YouTube. So be sure to check out his stuff. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. While we were hung up in those calls, we have some super chats that came in, some gifted memberships as well. A 5-spot from our guy Oscar. I'm trying to find it. We're going to give him a Jets chat. Jets. There we go. Oscar coming out his first 5 raffle tickets here. Oscar wants in on the raffle. I appreciate it. For those, if you're wondering, 118 of you tuning in, for those who don't know what our membership raffle is, first month of us doing it, big prizes include Garrett Wilson signed mini helmet, Wayne Corbett signed football, free item from our merch store, along with a channel emoji. Hear your name called, you are a member, and thank Oscar. Zoink Nation, Peter Bondras, Aaron Goodcharts, G-Star, L-Train, Anderson, and let's see, is that 5? Yep. Those are 5 gifted memberships. Thank Oscar. Oscar, you're the GOAT. I appreciate all of your support on the program. Let's go back to the phone lines. Our guy, he was in the private chat. He's been waiting forever. First-time caller on the program. June, the GM, joins us on the show.
Hey, what's going on, Connor? I had to jump on. You impressed me earlier today, so I wanted to talk some football. I'm not going to get into stats and all that, and I'm not going to talk quarterbacks because it's premature to talk quarterbacks right now, right?
Yep.
I've been a Jet fan for over 45 years.
Wow.
51 years old. I started watching the Jets around 5-6 years old.
Jeez. Never
betrayed my team, been with my team through thick and thin, have suffered, cried, broken things, you name it. We are preconditioned as Jets fans to always be on edge because our organization always does crazy things.
Yep.
For example, why did we even start interviewing head coaching candidates before we even locked down the general manager? Through the history of sports, you always go out there, lock down the general manager, and then from there, let the general manager bring in his dog, his main ace that probably they talked about it 15 years ago. If I ever become a GM, I'm going to pull you in to be my head coach. So right now, our focus should be on who's the next GM because I want Aaron Glenn. Some people like Flores. I can't stand him. That's a different thing. But
Okay.
this is my fear. It might not be either of them, because word is the Sullivan has a good shot of being our GM. And that means maybe the defensive coordinator he brings along with him, who's down there in Green Bay, the old Boston College coach.
Halfley, Joe Halfley, yeah.
He did great things with the defense down there. I know he was like in Boston College. I'm not crazy about it. I'm not vouching for him. I want Aaron Glenn. But we need to really pray that we get the GM hiring right. Because whoever that GM is, it's not guaranteed that he's going to get Flores, Aaron Glenn, or anybody else we've been talking to. It might be a dark horse candidate. So let's pray. For me, I want Hallaby from the Philly. I think he's young, been in Philly over 20 years. I think the guy knows his stuff. I also like Chris Spielman. I grew up watching him play football, linebacker.
The Lions. He leads the franchise in tackles, yeah.
He used to break dudes' necks. Why I like Spielman? Word is that he was the man who changed the culture in Detroit, and he was behind bringing in the head coach and everyone else after that. I like Spielman, and I also like the guy, believe it or not, I like that guy Newman out there in Washington.
Lance Newmark. Yeah. He has that
the
connection to Glenn. You're big on Aaron Glenn, so that's a name to watch.
So, let's pray. I think the decision will be made by the end of this playoff weekend. I think we'll have our GM by then. I think Tennessee put the pressure on us.
Now, I'll say this about Lance Newmark. He's a name that's really kind of captivating / interesting for me because he spent 28 years with the Detroit Lions. So he overlapped with Glenn there. You look at their resurgence and now the rapid turnaround that's happening with Washington. Where he is right now is their assistant GM. He knows what it's like to walk into a dead, losing building, so to speak. Right. Kind of where our New York Jets are right now, and boom, turn them into rapid contenders quickly. While he's not the GM, the commander-in-chief, so to speak, making those decisions, he knows what it takes now. He's been around these buildings. He knows what it takes to, bring a team back to glory. And I think that's an important intangible.
What's amazing that can't be overlooked in sports. It's the most important position in all of sports to me, aside from good pitching in the playoffs in baseball. The quarterback position, when you get a guy like Daniels, who I didn't think highly of. I didn't watch too much of him.
Okay.
College football, I'm an Oklahoma Sooner fan.
Nice.
But seeing what a quarterback can do when you get a talent like Daniels with a good coach and good GM, that's why Washington turned it around so fast. Yep. We just got to nail this GM. We cannot get Grigson. We can't get that dude.
No. Okay.
They get him. I don't know. I might ban the Jets for one game this season. I watch one game.
Wow.
For the game. But we need to lock down the GM. Who do you like for GM yourself? Like I said, I like Hallaby. I like Chris Spielman. I like the guy from Washington. And, also, Dimitrov, I like him too.
He's my number one. Thomas Dimitrov.
Something out there in Atlanta back in the days, 13 years to be a GM. That's impressive. So you like him, and who else you like down there for GM?
So right now, June, Thomas Dimitrov, I just said he's my number one. I think there's something special to have a winning record, bring a team to the Super Bowl after inheriting a 4-win team, draft 11 Pro Bowlers, got the quarterback position right, drafted Matt Ryan, traded up to draft Julio Jones, some day 3 success, notable names to look out for. Grady Jarrett found in the 5th round. Jake Matthews was a huge part of that team. He found he was a first-round pick, but still, he was able to find talent. Most importantly, he was able to maximize on his day 1 and 2 picks while finding diamonds in the rough in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, which I think is really important from a drafting standpoint as a general manager. So that's where I am with him. B tier, so he's the only guy I have in my A tier for the article I put out. My B tier, I have Mike Greenberg, Brian Gain, and Alec Hallaby. I'll start with Gain. Has the connection to Glenn, so you're a big Glenn guy. They were on the Jets roster together. They both have spent extensive time with Bill Parcells. Gain has 1 year of experience as a GM, 2018 with the Texans. They went 11-5 that season. He was fired after the year, ultimately due to a power struggle between him and Bill O'Brien. So I wish we could have seen more of him there. He drafted the safety Justin Reed in his only draft there. Found it in the 3rd round too, so that was a nice find. We just haven't seen enough of him. I think giving him another opportunity could be really intriguing. Mike Greenberg I really like. He has the ties to the organization. Yep. Grew up a Jet fan, was a football administration intern for 2 years under Mike Tannenbaum. Cap expert, I think that's important as we kind of sort out all the Aaron Rodgers drama I think that's someone you really want to have in the building. And then Alec Halaby, I think, is an analytical wizard. And learning from Howie Roseman, one of, if not the best general managers in all of football, is super important, being his right-hand man. And we know how advanced the league is now with all these analytics. Someone I want to steer clear from is John Robinson, solely because, first off, his record's misleading. He won the division several times. He had a winning record, but once they traded A.J. Brown, never had a winning season. And he's not analytically advanced at all. It's a new generation. I know people are going to be, people, you mentioned you've been a fan of the team for over 40 years. So people who've been longtime football fans like that are going to be more opposed to analytics, I would say, than someone like me who just got into watching football recently, or Justin, who is in his 20s and, is big on analytics. So obviously the younger people are going to be more drawn to analytics than the eye test. But I think analytics at this point is so important. And I think the ceiling with Alec Halaby is a Super Bowl. Like, this is a new generation. As much as I love Thomas Dimitroff, who's in his 50s, like, this is a new generation of football. There's something to be said for bringing in a 30-something-year-old guy who uses analytics a ton while pairing him with Aaron Glenn, who's a first-time head coach, but I think has the upside to be a top head coach in the league.
Yeah, I think it takes a balance. I think, someone my age, I have children your age, and I do learn from them. I work for a top sneaker brand, so I stay in the loop with the youngins. I call you. There has to be a balance, right? You do need the analytics, but you also need the people in your organization that can smell at it. You need both. So I definitely think there's a place for that. Like I said, the guy, I look at good organizations. Look, let's be honest. I think Joe Douglas was good at drafting.
He was.
It took him too long to fix the offensive line. And let's be honest, when you miss a quarterback that high in the draft, you're gonna suffer. That's the history of the sport. He missed on Wilson, point blank. But
his record was 32 and 60 something. Like,
exactly.
I think he did a great job of putting this team in position to win. Don't mean to cut you off there, sorry. But he ultimately missed on the Zach Wilson pick. And while he made these what were supposed to be free agent splashes, ultimately he was over 30 games under 500. Like, you can only be the champion of the offseason for so long. You eventually have to put a product out on the field. And that's what I was saying all offseason long. I was like, yes, let's go. But this is important. They made the splashes. At some point, you still have to put something out on the field. And unfortunately, Douglas is never able to do that over a 6-year tenure.
And we have to think about this too, right? When we're talking about our New York Jets, we're talking about arguably probably the second worst owner in all of sports, right? Right behind our boy out there in Dallas, right?
You can argue.
Not in spending money, but in terms of meddling.
I'd say Jerry Jones is a worse meddler, yes.
Oh, no, of course, he's number one. That's why I said behind him. But one thing I can't give Woody, though, we don't fire coaches right away in GMs. We give them some time to get it right. Joe Douglas had enough time. So for all the Jet fans out there, we always, no. He had plenty of time. But no matter what, we can argue all night about Aaron Rodgers, about Tyrod Taylor, about Justin Fields. We could be here all night about that. We need to get the right GM.
Agreed.
Because the GM is going to get us the right head coach if he's the man for the job. If we strike out and bring one of these old guys because we're scared of somebody new and young, like you were just talking about, if we go out there and go old and bring this guy from Minnesota that I can't stand, or bring the guy Robinson from Tennessee, if we do something like that, we might be in for another 3-4 years of severe pain. I'm telling you.
A goal to win a Super Bowl, June. That's why I said I don't know where you stand with Mike Tomlin. I don't want to necessarily go there right now where we stand, but I was not for trading a first-round pick for Mike Tomlin, and I started off, my words get misconstrued all the time. People were saying, oh, well, that's crazy. You don't want to. I started off by saying Mike Tomlin is my favorite head coach in the league, which he is. I think it's remarkable that you go 18 years as a team's head coach, and you bring them to the play, and you have a winning record all 18 seasons, but he hasn't won a playoff game in 2016, June. That's why I mentioned Alec Halaby, Mike Greenberg, Joe Brady, Josh McCown as head coach and GM candidates. They have the most upside. Put the past 14 years behind us. The goal here is to win a Super Bowl.
But you got to remember with this, when you're talking about a guy like Mike Tomlin, right, who I think he's top 3 coach in the league, you have to look at the organization. The Pittsburgh Steelers for years have been known as a cheap organization. They don't like to spend money. I don't know why. I don't know how deep the owner's pockets are, but when you really look at the talent he got out there, he don't got much to work with.
That's what I said is impressive there, June. I'm just saying
So,
I'm not
yeah,
giving up.
that's what makes him
I'm
great.
not giving up a first-round pick. That was like my example. I'm not giving up a top 10 pick and then some for someone who's not won a playoff game since 2016. I just can't do that. That's why I said Josh McCown, Joe Brady, Alec Callaby, Mike Greenberg are appealing to me because we put the past 14 years behind us. What's another year of losing? If you're going to guarantee nothing's guaranteed, but there's a strong chance that you take a chance on one of these high upside guys that you win a Super Bowl 10 years down
I mean,
the
we
road.
got nothing to lose at this
That
point.
is, thank you. That is the goal right now.
Really
Not to
One
bring.
thing I don't like though, I don't like McCown coming out saying that he will not take a job unless.
Well, we don't know if he actually said that. That's
I hope
Adam.
he didn't. I hope he didn't because I think the natural progression for quarterback coaches, go ahead, be OC for a year or two, and then boom, there you go, you land the head coaching job.
Unless you're Zach Taylor, we rarely see that.
I like McCown. I like. Here's my thing. We haven't interviewed my favorite candidate all year.
Who's that?
Which is, I wanted us to interview John Gruden. I did, and I'm gonna.
I don't think they were gonna do that because they have Jets have a great relationship with Roger Goodell. All that stuff that happened.
Right now, of course, we know that Woody's about his money. Woody comes first. That's why we got to be careful with Arthur Smith, and I'm gonna tell you why. Arthur Smith's father, owns FedEx.
Yes, I was reading I had no idea until before the
Arthur
show.
Smith's father owns FedEx.
I was reading an article and I saw that. I was reading an article.
Woody likes big money. So, it could be some stuff about that. Hey, come on down. Let's work a big deal. Sponsor the job. Be careful with Arthur Smith. I think Arthur Smith is Adam Gase reborn. I can't stand that dude. I can't stand him. But we have to land. I think we're going to, like I said, by the end of this playoff weekend, we'll have our GM, and then we can get back on here and be excited and see what happens from there. But if we strike out on this GM, I'm going to tell you, Connor, this is coming from a fan who's been here over 45 years, I told you. Be in for a long journey if we get this wrong like we got it wrong with Adam Gase.
I agree. I will say this about Arthur Smith. It's so much like Adam Gase. Head coaching experience. I mean, Arthur Smith went 7-10 over his 3 seasons there. And similar to Gase, the Jets had deep talks with Smith about hiring him in 2021, just like the Jets had it with Gase in 2016 before hiring him in 2019.
And we tried to bring him in this year, Smith.
Yeah, this past off as a consultant, not as a head coach, as an offensive.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. So I've been vocal of don't go Arthur Smith. My worst nightmare is you go Arthur Smith. He gives you a 9-8 season. You get into the playoffs and you get blown out in the first round. That's not the goal for this team. The goal is to win a Super Bowl.
We got the good thing about us is we have talent, right? Yeah. Whoever comes in is not dealing with a bare roster. We have a lot of young talent. We need somebody who can get more from that talent. That's why I like Aaron Glenn, because when you look at Detroit's not loaded with superstars on defense.
They
don't got household names. They have been overachieving, and that comes with good coaching. That's why my favorite candidate is Aaron Glenn. Old Jet, like I said, I love the way he talks. If you heard him in the press conference yesterday,
of course.
I want to play again. You know what I'm saying? I want Aaron Glenn. But before even that, like I said, I can't get my hopes up for him. We need the GM. We need to strike on the GM, and we need to do it fast because we cannot lose out another GM, because I think Borgonzi was going to be a good GM for us.
Okay.
We struck out on him. Tennessee did what they were supposed to do. That's how you handle it. Don't let them leave the building again. You coming in, here goes the deal. If we don't get the GM right, we're in trouble. I'm telling you now. We're in trouble.
I agree.
Has to be one of them young gunners we mentioned. And like Sullivan could be good too. Been in Green Bay over 20 years. Green Bay is a great organization. They always have good players. They're not an up and down organization with issues like our Jets or the Cleveland Browns or the Panthers or nothing like that. I won't be mad with him either. I won't be mad, but he's not my top choice.
June, I couldn't agree with you more. This is one of the most important hires, I think, for the Jets, this new regime. I appreciate it. Appreciate your call. You got any final thoughts here?
Yeah, let's all pray that we get the GM right, because, I want to know what it is to win a Super Bowl. I've been rooting for this team over 40-something years, and
yes, sir.
I was born in 73, and it hurts seeing this year, unlike any other year, hurt me deeply, because I really thought, Aaron Rodgers was always my favorite quarterback the last 10 years in the league. I really thought that we can do something this year. I think every Jet fans agrees. We all came into the season saying, we're contenders, we're here to play. And to see the season go this way, I don't know what to do, man. Emotionally, I don't have I can't take another 3-4 years of this stuff. I can't do it. So
It's
we
tough.
need to hit the GM.
June, appreciate it. Great stuff as always. Have a great day.
Appreciate you. Keep doing the great work, man.
June means a lot. First time caller. Great call from our guy, June. A few questions here before we wrap it up with a few calls. I mean, an hour and 55 minutes in. Wow, this has been a great show. And again, final chance. Show's winding down in a few minutes. Get in our membership raffle. Every membership gives you a raffle ticket. Garrett Wilson, signed mini helmet, Wayne Corbett, signed football free item from our merch store, and a free channel emoji are the prizes we're giving away. All will be raffled off at the end of the month. If you want your question answered immediately, super chat it in. We'll have a few questions we get to. And don't forget, smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. That is completely free. It means a lot. 41 of you watching, 61 likes here on this show. I appreciate all of your support here on this Friday evening, about to turn 10 o'clock. Appreciate you all sticking with us. Mother effing Chew comes in with his 2-month super chat. Who is the QB next year? Mother effing Chew, if I had to make a prediction, I think this is what the room looks like. I think it is Tyrod Taylor. I think it is Justin Fields. And I think it is Jordan Travis. I think that is the three. Honestly, I wouldn't mind it. I think those are the three candidates that I want. So, three, not even candidates, not talking about head coach and GMs here. Three options that I would strongly want. And I think that's how it's going to play out. I do think the Jets signed Justin Fields. And speaking of Fields, Jay comes in with his 1-month super chat. Thoughts on Fields as a bridge? I think he's able to, I want him and Tyrod to be able to battle it out for the starting job. I think he's capable with the right offensive system to play, to bring a team to a 9-10 win season. Those are my thoughts on Justin Fields. I think he has the most upside out of anyone available. That's why I'm a fan of his. Let's see. Hey, Charles comes in. Hey, Connor, I hope you're doing well. Charles, I see you on hold. We're going to get to you shortly. Let's go out to our guy, Austin, who's next up on the hotline. Austin, looks like his screen is black. Austin, going once, going twice, going 3 times. We see you now. You're muted, though. Austin?
Yo, what up, my guy?
How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. How you been? It's been a while.
I'm doing well. Yeah, I actually remember you the second time calling in. I have a crazy memory. I think you called in on like my Easter show or something. So it's been a while since we spoke.
Yeah, it's been a minute. All I wanted to talk about, I'll be quick because I know you've been on a minute. All I wanted to talk about was I want Aaron Glenn and I want Chris Spielman as the GM. I think if you I think Spielman's the perfect candidate. You bring him in first. He brings in Aaron Glenn because he's been a part of the Detroit. He was one of the main reasons Dan Campbell and who's
Brad
the
Holmes.
GM for the Lions?
Brad Holmes.
He's the reason he's the reason they got hired. I think he knows what he's talking about. I think we need to trust somebody like that. He was a NFL player for a long time too, mostly with the Lions. He had a lot of loyalty to the Lions. But I think you hire him, you bring Aaron Glenn, and I think Aaron Glenn brings in Mark Brunell as the offensive coordinator, and I think he lets him do what he wants to do. And I think with that, the problem with what happened this year, the problem with Aaron Rodgers is it ruined it. Even with Robert Saleh, we had this awesome, everybody was so hopeful because the team was confident, even though we were losing. The team, the chemistry and everything was there. You bring in Rodgers and it ruined everything. It got Salah fired. Salah obviously wasn't the best coach. I will say that he just knew how to bring everyone together. They just weren't winning games.
Yeah, 1,000%. Spielman's interesting. He doesn't have GM experience. His brother, though, Rick, who's assisting with the search, has GM experience. I think he's ready for the job. I think you mentioned, kind of reviving their organization by recommending the hiring of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, the massive plus on his resume. You give me Spielman and Aaron Glenn, I wouldn't hate it. I definitely think there are worse options out there. You mentioned Mark Brunell as OC. He's a little inexperienced. If they're going to, bring back a familiar face, someone else who's connected to Aaron Glenn on the coaching side of things, John Morton, I spoke about him earlier on in the show with with Justin. I would love bringing John Morton back. Ideally, this is what I want. I want Aaron, realistically too. Aaron Glenn, head coach, Brian Gain, GM, John Morton, OC, Darren Rizzi, special teams coordinator, Dennis Allen, defensive coordinator. You're basically surrounding a first-time head coach with the most experience you possibly can. So I think that's a massive plus as the Jets kind of narrow down these list of candidates and bring back guys for second interviews. Austin, appreciate the call. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think you killed it on exactly what I was thinking for when it came to the with the coaching lineup. Other than the offensive coordinator, the only reason I say Mark Brunell is he's been with Glenn since 2021 in Detroit. He's the quarterback coach. So that's the only reason I said Brunell. It's because he's got a little bit of a quarterback coach experience. And I kind of feel like that's kind of helped out with OCs coming in is the quarterback coach position specifically.
Yeah. Great stuff, Austin. I completely understand why you want Brunell. Familiar face backup for Mark Sanchez. Austin checking in, great stuff. As always, 2 more callers left here before we wrap. Last chance if you want to get in on the conversation by clicking the pinned comment to call in the show. While I have all you guys here, we got 40 of you watching on YouTube, which means a lot. I'm going to plug. I've been throwing it in throughout the show, but the merch store, the NY Flight Jets Talk merch store has been live for quite some time now, so please be sure to check it out. Some great stuff over there would mean the world. And then the Discord, I know we have like 20-something of you guys in the Discord. We're still trying to grow that. Daily Jets conversations, exclusive updates on the channel. You can submit mailbag questions through our Discord, so I'm going to throw the Discord in the chat. It would mean the world if you guys could join that as well. We have a ton of Jet fans in there. Let's keep adding to the list. And like I said, last chance to call into the show, pin comment in the chat. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Let's go out to our guy, Charles, who's up next on the show. Charles, what's going on?
Hey, Connor, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Look, I know a lot of Jet fans are mixed on who they should keep, who in terms of the quarterback, but I have to agree with June, the GM here. We got to get it right with the head coach and the GM. Originally, I wanted Brian Flores as number 1, but I can see why people would have Aaron Glenn as their number 1. I mean, he was mentioned by the legend himself, Bill Parcells, who was one of the greatest head coaching icons in NFL history, and for a good reason. As for my GM, as much as I would love Dimitroff, I think Dimitroff gets a lot of flack because of what happened in the Super Bowl between his Falcons and the Patriots.
It's not his fault. He's not the coach.
I know, but still, I think he did a lot of good for that organization. He drafted probably one of the best passers in NFL history in Matt Ryan, who you can make a strong argument as a borderline Hall of Fame quarterback. But as for who I want as GM, I would want Chris Spielman because what he has done for the Detroit Lions organization, not just as a player, but as a consultant. I think consultant in some aspects is just as big as a general manager because you're trying to help set the team up for a better and brighter future. And he did that. I mean, Chris Spielman, he was an analyst, he was a broadcaster for so many years. And look what he's done. Him and John Lynch have proven to be the anti-Matt Millen. If you remember Matt Millen, he was a very good player in the NFL. But when he became the GM of the Lions, he was terrible. The Lions were terrible under him. And when John Lynch, who's one of the all-time great safeties in NFL history, he became the GM of the 49ers, people thought he would be the next Matt Millen, but he's proven to be quite the opposite. These are guys that know what they're doing. And, I would love Chris Spielman as a GM. And Aaron Glenn, my father, I don't know if I told you much about my father. He's been a Jets fan since the Joe Willie Namath days.
Nice.
And he really liked Aaron Glenn as a player. And he wants Aaron Glenn as the coach because he really...
Charles? Going once, going twice. We got you. Hello? Charles?
Yeah.
You're
I'm
very
here.
laggy.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're very laggy. Yeah, Glenn, what I was going to say, Glenn did great things for the team. 2 Pro Bowl appearances
Aaron
over his
Glenn,
8-year tenure.
definitely.
Charles, it looks like, I guess I'm going to let you go here. It looks like you're pretty much behind. Your Wi-Fi is kind of bugging out. Charles?
Yeah, sorry about that. Have a good day, kiddo.
I appreciate it, Charles. Sorry about that. Wi-Fi was acting up there. I appreciate you checking in, calling in, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Final chance to get in on the conversation, final chance to call into the show. We'll wrap things up here for the time being. Only one more person left on hold. He's been waiting for a long time. He's one of our most electric callers. It's the Lane Train
Hey,
joining us on the program. Lane, what's going on?
oh, hi, Connor.
How are you?
Good. I mean, I just want to talk about the Jets. Um, the last few callers really got into it. You see, I'm not really like that. I know I was never as loud. So, who do you, I mean, do you take the kid, like you have to sign, like, do you take, like, honestly, do you trade for Justin, Fields or not?
Well, Justin Fields is a free agent lane this
Really?
offseason. I think depending on what you can depending on what you can sign him for, I think if you can get
Yeah,
him
I
on
know
a
what you
cheap,
mean, though. Like,
yeah,
if
on a
you sign
cheaper
him,
contract.
what do you do with Rodgers? Do you
So,
trade Aaron Rodgers? Because this is like, either do you sign him or do you trade him?
Lane, what I do have to say about Aaron Rodgers is I don't think he has trade value. I think their best option is to cut him with a pre-June 1 designation, eat all $49 million of their his dead cap charge next season, and simply move on. As for Fields, what I was saying, you
Yeah.
get him on a 1-year cheap deal. I think I think he is the most upside out of any potential quarterback the Jets
Okay.
could have on the roster next season. So you get Fields on a cheap 1-year deal, cut Rodgers with a pre-June 1 designation. I think that is the Jets' best option at the quarterback position.
So then also, you keep Sauce Garner, but you're
Yep.
gonna have to trade somebody. Have you thought about getting back, Zach Wilson or not?
I do
Again,
not want Zach Wilson back on the Jets lane. I'll say that. I think he had his fair run here. I don't want Zach back on the Jets.
maybe you could send him to maybe the Giants or maybe the Eagles and see if maybe the Giants could sign him.
Zach Wilson to the Giants? I mean, why not, Lane? Third string quarterback with the Broncos. Giants don't really have a plan at the quarterback position next year. Why not why not roll the dice on Zach Wilson? Lane, I appreciate the call. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, and also, yeah. So I mean, I'm just looking forward to the rest of this season for the like going into for Saturday and Sunday for the playoffs. For this round coming up.
Lane, I hope you have a great
Or that's
weekend.
all I have to say.
Lane, I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Enjoy
Okay.
the slate of
Thank
games.
you for taking my call.
Of
Thank
course,
you. Bye-bye.
the Lane Train checking in. Great stuff as always. That's going to wrap it up for us. It looks like the show has come to an end. The longest show in NY Flight Jets Talk history. Over 2 hours long, thanks to all of your support. Final chance, smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Last chance to call in, last chance to get your comments up on the screen. If you want your comments up, immediately super chat it in. Membership raffle, last chance. Garrett Wilson signed mini helmet. Winkerbet signed football free item from our merch store. And a free channel emoji. Those are the prizes we're raffling off at the end of the month. Every membership you gift gets you a raffle ticket. Wow. Over 2 hours long. The first time we've done this in NY Flight Jets Talk history, and the show's been going for well over a year. I can't thank you guys enough for all your support. I mean, what are we? Let's get an exact subscriber count right now. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Subscriptions, the liking the video completely free means a lot. Wow, we just hit at the start of the show. We were at 1,362 subscribers. Now we're at 1,370. So 8 of you subscribed throughout the show. Your support means a ton. I can't thank you guys enough for all you've done helping contribute to the show. You guys are the ones who keep the show going and allow us to continue to do these giveaways, the raffles, which we're planning on doing every single month. So keep up the great support. It truly means a lot to me and the show. Last chance, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. We're going to wrap up here soon. When do you guys expect a GM or a head coach in the building? I would love one by the Senior Bowl. These draft events, early prep for free agency is going to start to heat up. As much as I love talking about the head coach and GM search, I mean, I'm on here basically every day talking about it. I want someone in here shortly. I certainly do. Certainly do. And you guys seem to love Justin, which is great. Justin was a first-time guest on the show. He joined us for the first hour and a half. So if you're just tuning in, rewind and watch that. Great stuff. We're joined by Justin Fried of the Jet Press. Hopefully we'll get Justin back on soon. And hopefully the next time we're talking with him, a head coach and a general manager is in place. So I appreciate you all tuning in. Like I said, your support means a ton. It's going to wrap it up. Be sure to smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. I am your host, Connor Long, signing off. JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.